Yes, you're invited to weigh in. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan are up next with Boston Public Radio, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org. Henry Louis Gates Jr. introduces actor Lizzie Kaplan and comedian Hassan Minhaj to ancestors whose brave decisions forever reshaped their families. Watch Finding Your Roots tonight at 8 on GBH2.
Starting Monday, there's a new show on GBH 89.7, The Curiosity Desk. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Join me for a daily dose of questions, answers, and more questions. Stories big and mainly small, driving the zeitgeist. Like, what even is a zeitgeist?
It's a German word. Basically means spirit of the times.
See? Like that. It's all on The Curiosity Desk, weekdays at 1, starting Monday on GBH 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on the 11 o'clock hour of BPR live from the library. Donald Trump has called Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry in an effort to de-escalate tensions in Minnesota. Bovino is out, Nome may be out, and even members of the president's own sycophantic party are pushing back a bit against his policies. Is this a turning point in Trump's cruel, deadly, anti-immigrant efforts? Call or text.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll get the latest from CNN's chief national correspondent John King on what we can expect this week as a bipartisan chorus grows for something to change in how the president's going about his immigration crackdown ahead of another funding deadline for the government on Friday. It's all ahead, 11 o'clock hour at BPR, GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is sending his border czar, Tom Homan, to Minneapolis. He'll replace top Border Patrol officer Greg Bovino, who has been a lead in the immigration crackdown in Minnesota. This comes after the second deadly shooting of a Minneapolis protester over the weekend. NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports a federal judge has heard arguments on pausing the federal immigration operation in the state.
Minnesota says thousands of federal agents have acted so aggressively that it's infringed on the state's sovereign right to ensure public safety. And it argued the surge was politically driven. The Trump administration insisted it's conducting legitimate immigration enforcement. The judge noted the situation is so unprecedented, there's little case law to guide a decision. Meanwhile, Trump is telling his border czar, Tom Homan, to work with Minnesota officials and report directly to him. Governor Tim Walz says the previous official in charge, Border Patrol Chief Gregory Bovino, is leaving the state. The change follows growing backlash after Homeland Security insisted Saturday's fatal shooting was in self-defense, despite video evidence that contradicted that. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Minneapolis.
Separately, another federal judge has ordered the acting head of ICE to appear in a courtroom in Minnesota on Friday. The judge wants to know if Todd Lyons should be held in contempt. The judge says ICE has disobeyed his order to release a detained man or give him a bond hearing. Well over 500,000 customers are still out of power after this weekend's huge winter storm. Most of the outages are in Tennessee and Mississippi. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves has called up 500 National Guard troops to help with recovery. He says ice storms are different from other storms that Mississippi faces.
And it's particularly different when you see the ice come in and then 48 hours or so after the precipitation leaves, the temperature has still not gotten above freezing.
It's currently 25 degrees in Mississippi's capital, Jackson. Forecasters say extreme cold weather warnings are up for part of the Midwest and much of the South. India and the European Union have finalized a trade deal marking a turning point in their economic relations. NPR reports from Berlin. Indian Prime Minister Modi calls it the mother of all deals.
The European Commission says the deal will forge a market of 2 billion people and nearly a quarter of global economic output. It comes after years of difficult negotiations. Europe's economic slowdown and India's desire for expanding markets have helped seal the deal. Once signed, it'll pave the way for the free trade of goods between the EU and India, and it could be followed up with a security and defense partnership between the two sides as well. While it won't be signed for months, the deal follows the EU-South America-Mercosur deal and reflects trade shifts amid American protectionism under President Trump. Rob Schmitz, NPR News, Berlin.
This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A coalition of gun groups are suing Massachusetts over age restrictions that are tied to gun ownership. One is the national group, the Second Amendment Foundation, which argues that U.S. and state history do not support segments of the Bay State's new gun law. In July 2024, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey signed a sweeping gun law, which in part puts new age restrictions for those who can purchase, carry, or possess a gun. The Second Amendment Foundation claims the new law violates Second Amendment rights by preventing Bay Staters older than 18 but younger than 21 from possessing or carrying handguns and large-capacity semi-automatic firearms. The sheriff of Bristol County calling for the resignation of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and the head of Customs and Border Patrol, Greg Bovino. Sheriff Paul Heroux is among the first law enforcement officials to speak out against federal immigration enforcement. It comes after this weekend's fatal shooting of a man in Minneapolis by Border Patrol agents. Heroux says it's clear that agents do not have proper training.
What I would like to see happen is, ICE make sure that everybody's properly trained in the use of force continuum, understanding what citizens may and may not do with respect to observing and recording, which is constitutionally protected First Amendment activity. None of this is happening.
Our partners over at BUR reported this story. They've reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for comment and got crickets. 18 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the William T. Grant Foundation, supporting research to improve the lives of young people. Online at wtgrantfoundation.org. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Hey, Jim Browdy. I'm Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I'm impressed people even made it to the library today because it's a tough day for getting around.
It's warm in here. They should be here.
It is warm.
And a lot more should be here, too. Get over here.
Okay, get over here. At noon, we're going to be joined by Auditor Diana DiZoglio. She's going to be here at noon, former ambassador tomorrow to the NATO organization. Nicholas Burns is here. On Friday from 12 to 1, the governor, Maura Healey, will be with us here at the library, taking our questions and yours. And starting Monday, we are very grateful to our bosses. We are going to be going back to 2 hours. We're going to be 11 to 1 instead of 11 to 2, so Jim and I can go out to lunch.
Exactly,
hey,
and so Edgar can have a show from 1 to 2, the Curiosity Desk. We start the show with welcome news for many, I am guessing. Greg Bovino, the self-assigned tough guy commander-at-large of the Border Patrol, is being ordered out of Minneapolis by Trump, returning to his post in California. The Atlantic reports he plans to retire. So no more photo ops and stunt videos of him and his goon squad marching through the streets of Minneapolis, looking like a cross between the Gestapo and the Jim Crow-era slave patrols, at least in theory. Last night, apparently, Kristi Noem and a New Hampshire guy, her number 2, Corey Lewandowski, apparently were summoned to the Oval Office for a 2-hour meeting with Donald Trump. The rumors are that Noem is on the way out. Trump, after excoriating every Democratic elected official in Minnesota, had phone conversations yesterday with the governor and the mayor. That's something. And there's a growing, somewhat bipartisan chorus calling for oversight into Trump's cruel and deadly immigration crackdown. So today we're asking you, at 877-301-8970, call or text, is the tide finally turning, at least on this anti-immigration savagery? It's one thing to enforce immigration laws, it's another to entirely violate First, the Second, the Fourth, and potentially 10th Amendments, to do so not to mention killing two people in Minneapolis. And the Trump supporters, conservatives, anyone else who says they support this administration's efforts to crack down on immigration, what happened to your party of free speech, of gun rights, of states' rights? When will the hypocrisy be too much for you? The number's 877-301-8970. I have to say, we've said they're turning points, at least I have, a couple of dozen times in the term and a quarter of Donald Trump. I think this may be one. I think seeing these endless different video angles out of Minneapolis of what I'm comfortable calling the murder of Alex Preddy, I think may have turned the tide. Do you?
Well, yeah, I think they have been lying and lying and lying constantly from DHS. Of course, the president lies constantly, but I think people have finally seen it with their own eyes, and they do believe their own eyes instead of what Kristi Noem was telling them. And I think there's also people that are not normally engaged in this kind of thing. I read this story this morning from the Washington Post about these influencers, the cat forums, the fitness people, the people that advise on fashion and sewing. Suddenly they're getting involved in politics. And there was this one guy from Rhode Island, I think he is, who does a golf site. And on top of the golf site, it says, if you still support Trump, ICE, even slightly, you're not welcome in this on this place. And I think that is, people are just so upset about this. We get to say, though, there is a long way to go. I mean, they still have that little 5-year-old boy is still in a detention facility down in Texas, which is outrageous. There are stories in the Globe today about a little kindergartner, 5 years old, left without her mother. There was no one to pick her up at the end of the day in Maine. And the people, the relatives that this child is left with are afraid because they're going to come take them, and then she'll have nobody, and she'll wind up in foster care. I don't think this is what people want in the United States. They wanted the border closed, the border's closed. They wanted the bad people to be gotten rid of, and that's swell. But I don't think they wanted the person that's at their child care that's been here for 25 years to be sent back to Ecuador. I just don't think that's what people wanted. And I think where people finally are speaking up about it.
Speaking of the worst, remember the part of the explanation other than the abject lies that we've played repeatedly told by people like Noem and Bovino and
twice
Patel.
In court. He got caught by a jury, he got caught by a judge for lying.
In addition to those lies, an additional lie that we weren't aware of, what they said was this is part of a, quote, targeted effort to get this guy, whose name I forget at the moment, and, his name is Jose Huerta Chuma. And they said, I can't remember which of these, quote, leaders said that he had committed domestic assault, disorderly conduct, driving without a license. In fact, I think it's the Bureau of Prisons in Minneapolis, in Minnesota, said this guy has no criminal record. So even the target of the alleged operation was not one of the worst of the worst. I'm so glad you said whatever you said a minute ago. It's either not enough or it's not over. You mentioned the 5-year-old. Here's Governor Walz. He was talking to Minnesota Public Radio yesterday about his hope that the tides are turning after he spoke to Trump.
That horrific scene that played out on Saturday morning, you could tell there was no professionalism to that. You could tell that this seemed personal for some reason, that running across and pushing people. And then I hope that we finally maybe broke the fever. The explanation from Kristi Noem was so far off that I think maybe this is what broke it.
It may have, but one of the things, Marty, I don't know if you've read more closely than I, one of the things that concerns me about Fry, the mayor, who I also admire, as well as Walz, their response, positive response to Trump calling them, is until Trump agrees that state and local authorities can participate in the investigation of Alex Preddy, not to mention leave Minneapolis altogether, but at minimum allow state and local authorities to share the evidence and participate in the investigation so we get to the bottom of whether or not this was murder by federal agents of this ICU nurse. A phone call from Trump after what he and his people have done, at least to me, is not enough. 877-301-8970. But there clearly is movement. How optimistic are you out there by what has happened in the last 24 hours?
You know what's great, too, is that people have been protesting all around the country. And the Minnesota people out there in like sub-zero weather, thousands of people. And it's not just there. It's in New York. It's in Florida, smaller ones, obviously, in these other places around the country. But people are protesting all around the country. You don't like seeing people gunned down in the middle of the day. And most of us don't like to see children take separated from their families. And one more thing before we get to the calls at 877-301-8970. I was watching, I started taping her on Monday nights because she does offbeat things, Rachel Maddow on MSNBC, and she interviewed an immigration lawyer from a place called in Dilley, South Texas, who was representing this family. And the family included 2 5-year-old twins who drew pictures for him of these very sad faces. They have been in that detention facility for 8 months. And according to the lawyer who visited them there, the water is putrid. Mothers are having to mix formula with putrid water. The food often contains bugs. A person that had appendicitis was told to go back and wait another few days. And your appendix can rupture. These are private prisons run by us. And these are where families are in this place in Dilley. They had a big protest yesterday, the people there, and they were demanding liberty for the children who have been there for weeks and months, including that is the place where that 5-year-old child that we saw in his bunny hat with the little ears is still incarcerated.
Before we do get to the calls, though, there's one other positive thing. And by the way, we're not here to say things are great. There's still dead people in Minneapolis. The troops, the federal troops, are still there. All they've done so far is recall Bovino and replace him with Homan. But one other positive thing, because I in particular, but I know you feel the same way, have complained that the federal courts, while a lot of decisions below the Supreme Court level are good ones, the Trump administration just ignores the rulings and nothing happens to them. The top federal judge in Minnesota has summoned the acting head of ICE, this guy Todd Lyons, which is extraordinary, to his courtroom on Friday and threatening to hold him in contempt for the repeated violation of court orders about bond hearings and those sort of things. So it may be that on every level people are finally catching up with the public that this is far too much.
I think a lot of people who believed Trump and DHS don't believe him anymore. And I think that's a breakthrough because we've been years here in the truth-based media and the made-up lying media. And Trump has perfected that. And I'm like to think that even some people who supported him have now realized that he's a con man and a liar. 877-301-8970. You want to go to Jim in Manchester by the Sea?
Hi, Jim.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. Hopefully the connection's good because I'm in my car, though.
It's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Look, I frame the way I think about this, I frame it in the context of 2 quotes. One, Timothy Snyder, the other Ernest Hemingway. About a week ago, Timothy Snyder was being interviewed, and he said, we can't go back to where we were, nor should we want to, and because it was clearly an unsustainable situation. And the situation is that we are in a terrible state right now, but if we went backwards to 2016. The conditions were fertile for a guy like Trump to become president. We can't really ignore that. And so something was wrong, even back then. The other quote, which is related to the first, is from The Sun Also Rises. The protagonist is asked, how did you go bankrupt? And he responds 2 ways, slowly, then quickly. And I would say that a lot of this goes back to, you see, in the post 9/11, we created the Patriot Act, which created ICE and DHS, which gave the federal government the ability to strip us of a lot of our civil liberties. And, not only that, it created a whole atmosphere of both over our overseas policies and internal policies, an atmosphere of cruelty that's been accepted.
Yeah, but I'm not defending any of that, and I agree with your analysis completely, Jim. I think the one thing that's got to be added to the conversation is no one thought that even the worst of legislation would allow this kind of behavior by a president of the United States, meaning who doesn't care about constitutional restraints, legal restraints, believes, as he said in that interview with the New York Times, the only thing that limits his ability to act is his own morality, which, as we know, is non-existent. Jim, thank you very much for the thoughtful call. By the way, another thing that's really
Timothy
interesting
Snyder
here.
should mention his book on tyranny. I think it's still at the top of the bestseller
It's fabulous.
list. Little tiny book. It's really
Great.
good. Yeah.
You know, the other thing is, I assume people know gun rights people who love Trump. Trump promised, I'm going to protect your Second Amendment forever, are turning on him too. And I think we know why, because, well, I should say why, is the notion that having a weapon was sacred under the Second Amendment. And if you brought it with you, that, of course, is constitutionally protected and by the Trump people respected. Here's Kash Patel, though, who used to believe that. He's now head of the FBI, unfortunately, talking about the killing of Alex Preddy.
But as Secretary Noem said, no one who wants to be peaceful shows up at a protest with a firearm that is loaded with 2 full magazines. That is not a peaceful protest, and you do not get to touch law enforcement. You do that anywhere, this FBI is going to be leading the charge to arrest those.
And not only is he a total fraud, Scott Bessent, who is the...
Well, did you mention what he said about Kyle Rittenhouse?
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, he said back, Kyle Rittenhouse was the teenager who brought a long gun to a protest back, I think, 3 or 4 years ago in Wisconsin, and he killed 2 people and wounded 3. He brought a load. I mean, he started shooting at what was supposed to be, I don't know if it was actually a peaceful protest, but he thought that was swell. He defended Rittenhouse, so he's done a 180 as well.
877-301-8970. What Bessent said, I forgot his economic guy. He said, well, I've gone to a lot of protests. I'm paraphrasing. When I go to protest, I bring a sign, not a weapon.
Yeah.
So again, as was said last night by some very thoughtful analysts, is essentially it's fine to carry a weapon legally with you unless you don't support Donald Trump. I mean, is that a fair description?
Yeah.
Alex Preddy obviously was wrong to bring his weapon because he was not a Trump supporter, period.
You know what's great? That the president is having these kumbaya talks with Governor Walz and with Mayor Fry. But, of course, he's got them all under criminal investigation from the DOJ.
That's a great point.
Because he didn't like them until, like, yesterday. So Fry and Walz and the Attorney General out there,
Keith Ellison,
they're all under criminal DOJ investigation. I mean, it's like everything is upside down.
Paula in Marshfield, you're next. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
This is a really sad time for our country. And what I really understand is that an ICU veteran nurse changed the narrative because Good was a lesbian. Do you know what I'm saying? So they could say whatever they wanted to say, but this guy was an ICU veteran, taking care of veterans, nurse. And I guess by getting rid of Bovino, who always looks like he was dressed as a Nazi, is gone, I'm thinking Trump understands he's in trouble.
Yeah, but let me just say, and Paul, I think it has more to do not with sexual orientation. I think it has to do with, you could make a case that there were at least some minor, honest differences of agreement based on the video of Good. She clearly should not have been killed, but you could have there's no room for disagreement except with Trump people in terms of the video around Preddy. Paula, thank you very much for the call there.
You know who's having a very bad day today?
Who's that?
Stephen Miller.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you another great
happier.
moment. One of the most embarrassing people who works for Donald Trump, and it's hard to say the most, Carolyn Levitt is just a despicable, lying human being. A reporter asked a wonderful question at a press conference yesterday. Is Stephen Miller, does he plan to apologize to the Preddy family for having called Alex Preddy a would-be assassin? And of course, you know what she doesn't answer the question. She dances and that sort of. How great is that? Is that a great question? And why can't they ever admit even a smidgen a mistake around something.
Because that's the Trump way. You lie and lie
Roy
and
Cohn.
lie until people believe it, and you never admit defeat. I mean, the classic case with him, Roy Cohn, a million years ago, where he adopted this philosophy, was when they got crushed in a case about
racial discrimination in their housing.
The apartment. They lost the case, they completely and totally, and they come out of the courtroom and they say, we won. It was a great victory. I mean, it takes a lot of chutzpah, but that's been his strategy. Black is white, red is green, and he gets away with it.
For young listeners, if you don't know Roy Cohn, Google him. His claim to fame is not just being the Trump family lawyer, but the right-hand guy for Senator McCarthy on the House Un-American Activities Committee. And he is, our colleague, Michael Kirk, did brilliant work in among his brilliant documentaries about exactly what you said about Roy Cohn taught Trump how to intersect with the public. And the answer is, as you say, lie relentlessly, never admit a mistake, and ultimately a segment of the population will buy it.
Jesse in Cambridge, thank you for calling.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hi.
Hi. The way that Trump and his minions take responsibility, in quotes, for anything is blame somebody else and never answer the question.
That's right.
So, Jim, I want to share your optimism, and Marjorie also, about maybe these recent events might mark or that there might be a turning towards something more positive happening, maybe perhaps even in the mind of Donald Trump, but I don't think so.
I didn't. By the way, let me be clear, Jesse, before you continue. I wasn't clear. I didn't mean that Trump cannot change his stripes. I meant with the public. I mean, I don't even think there's going to be that much achieved in Minneapolis. Bovino's gone home and is not exactly a civil libertarian. But I meant the public on the margins who are not getting it, as Marjorie said, who believed all the lies from the Trump people and from Fox News. This video just may have been too much. But go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry.
No, thank you, Jim. Now we agree completely.
Okay.
But, one of the definitions, or one of the parts of the definitions of a malignant narcissist, which is really strange to me, is that that's a person who will take pleasure, will take pleasure in the cruelty that is caused to other people. That they'll take pleasure in the suffering of other people. That is really ill, and that's what we see. Not only Trump, but the people who are his mouthpieces. And I'll just leave it there.
Jesse, that was a great call. Thank you. You know what's also another lesson that we've been saying for years? Doesn't matter how sycophantic you are to Trump.
Oh, he screws you.
At the end of the day,
he screws you.
When he needs a scapegoat, whether it's Kristi Noem or Greg Bovino,
go out on the limb.
Every single one of them
chops
cuts
it off.
I mean, it is amazing how stupid these people are to think you're sycophantic to him and he'll be loyal in return. He's loyal until you're a convenient, as you say, limb sitter.
Before we go to the break, I thought it was interesting that the Republican who is running for governor in Minnesota, I think is Chris Nadel, N-E-D-E-L, he dropped out of the race yesterday, and he said he could not win with this Republican Party doing what they were doing, and he left with a quote. I know nothing about this guy. Maybe he's a great guy, maybe he's not, but he said, quote, I have to look my daughters in the eye and said I believe what I did was right.
Well, I felt the same way until I found out that he didn't care about looking his daughters in the eye when he volunteered to represent the guy who killed Renee Good.
He did.
Again, everybody's entitled to representation.
But I like to think that was a few weeks ago, and I like to think that he's had a light bulb go off in his head. Okay, time for a quick break. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Black History Month marks its 100th anniversary this year. Since its founding with Carter G. Woodson's original Negro History Week in 1926. Noel Trent, President and CEO of the Museum of African American History, joins us to talk about how the celebration began, how it changed, and why the centennial moment matters as debates over history intensify. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu. And Subaru of New England. Wherever New England takes you, the all-wheel drive Subaru Outback is designed to keep you moving through every season. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy and Marjorie. And we're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The auditor, Diana DiZoglio, will join us at noon to talk about question 1 on the ballot 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and other auditing kinds of things. We're talking about the change that is happening in Minneapolis. Trump apparently getting rid of Bovino, maybe getting rid of Nome, calling and then praising in his own way the mayor and the governor, who, as Marjorie said, he ordered his Justice Department. I'd forgotten that.
That's right.
To prosecute, or at least to investigate for prosecution. Jesse, I'm glad Jesse called a minute ago. I don't think I speak for her. We're not saying all of a sudden everything's great and
we're not.
Things are wonderful in Minneapolis. I think what we inarticulately described is we think the tide is turning with the public. That even people who are big MAGA fans, a lot of them, when you saw that video, when you heard about what this
Trey
guy...
Gowdy on Fox,
well,
big
except,
right-winger.
Can I tell you, though, you got to be careful. One of the guys who's not demanded, all of a sudden on television, is the governor of Oklahoma. I think his name is Stitt. And when I saw him there, and they led saying he's going to essentially criticize Trump, I was sort of thrilled. He said he's getting bad advice.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even have courage to criticize Trump for fear he's going to do something to him. It's better than nothing. What did I didn't hear what Trey Gowdy said, former member of the House. What did he say?
He just was saying something about how this was, he said, we certainly should not be labeling him as a domestic terrorist who's going to execute cops. There's no evidence to support that.
Well, that's pretty good.
So he just, and some Eric Erickson, who's a right-winger, was less. I mean, some people on Fox News, actually, I mean, they were forced to look at the video and they couldn't.
But the answer is they should immediately withdraw from Minneapolis. They should not be sent into any other American city, and there should be a collaborative investigation and potentially prosecution for murder of one or more of these federal agents.
And as the Washington Post reported, 16 shootings since July,
I know,
and
I
not
didn't realize
a single
it was that
DHS
high.
officer has faced charges. And this has been going on for a long time. They recorded this woman, Marimar Martinez, U.S. citizen, shot 5 times by Border Patrol agents in Chicago in October. They accused her of aggressively and erratically pursuing the agent and ramming his car. Then the agent's body camera showed that he was the one that rammed her car, pointed a gun at her, threatened her, and shot her 5 times. So they've been lying.
Have you seen her interviewed, by the way, on CNN with her
great.
lawyer? She's fabulous.
She was great.
Let's go to Sonia in Boston. Sonia, thank you for calling. We appreciate it. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much.
Sure.
Earlier, you appropriately called ICE reminiscent of slave patrols, right? And folks are really likening ICE to the Gestapo. And I think it's important to remember that Hitler and other fascists in history studied the Jim Crow South and apartheid here in the United States, right? Which is a settler colonialist project built on genocide of Native Americans. And I think it's important that what we're seeing in Minnesota is not just happening. Black and brown people have been being gunned down in this country for decades, if not centuries. And so while I'm really glad to see the protests in Minnesota and activation of rapid response and community mutual aid, I'd like to remind folks that this is happening because of the last 2 years of pro-Palestine organizing, the past few decades of Black activists in the BLM movement after Trayvon Martin's death, and the prison industrial complex for the last several decades.
You're also leaving out George Floyd right down the road from where Renee Good was killed, Sonia.
Absolutely. That's part of the BLM movement as well. And that this work is built on indigenous land back movements that have laid a foundation for this resistance. And so when you ask about the tide turning, I think it's really important, especially for white folks, to remember not to fall to despair, And if you're looking for where to turn, I encourage you to turn to Black and Brown resistance movement.
Sonia, thanks for the call and thanks for your thoughts. Thanks for your historical analysis. 877-301-8970.
Where are we going?
You know, I'm so glad you brought. You know, I often criticize people on the show for having short attention spans. Something horrible happened 2 days ago. We got to focus on the horrible thing Trump's done today. I'm so glad you brought up the 5-year-old kid
He's still
from
there.
Minneapolis.
He's still there.
As far as we know, he is still there. Still there. Again, I assume everybody remembers the lie about his mother not wanting to take him in, and the only reason we believe that
was a
was
lie.
the case was because the husband was concerned that they were going to take, and she was concerned they'd take her, so when their other kid came home, he'd have nobody. Right in Maine, as you read from the Boston Globe, there are kids whose parents have been disappeared. I mean, it's right in our midst, 100 miles north of us or
if
less.
I was advising this guy,
Which guy?
Trump. If I were a political advisor to him, you know what I'd say? Declare victory. You close the border. Declare victory. And then start talking about the economy. He's not going to do that. I mean, he's claiming he's going to do that in Iowa, but that's what he should do politically. I don't know. I mean, and the other thing is, it's like incredible, as you said before the show. Last week it was, we're going to take over Greenland. We're going to.
That's all he talked about, 24 hours a day.
We had to have it. We had to have it. And now, like, that's all over with. And before that, he was going to race into Iran if they kept killing the protesters in Iran.
If they killed anybody, and now they've killed thousands.
Yeah.
Nothing.
That's all over with.
How about the Board of Peace? Did you read the Washington Post story about the Board of Peace?
Tell that.
The Board of Peace thing is a great piece in the Washington Post. Remember, this is the thing he created over there right after the most recent meeting. He is the head of the Board of Peace.
And none of the Europeans would join.
None. None of our allies.
There.
Essentially dictators plus Israel and one other place I can't remember, Argentina. That's one. Two, when you read the charter, which the Washington Post does, who makes every decision? Donald Trump. And do you know who makes every decision for the Board of Peace after Donald Trump leaves office, if he ever does? Donald Trump. Not the next president, not any other country. Donald Trump. And their point is the Board of Peace is going to disappear like the Greenland acquisition disappeared, like defending the Iranian protesters disappeared. And hopefully, it sure as hell hasn't happened yet, ICE and Border Patrol disappears.
You know what?
We only have 30 seconds.
Oh, a texter just said we should remember Baghdad Bob. Remember him during Iraq?
The best.
He came out with Saddam Hussein's spokesman. Everything was swell. Everything was crazy.
As people are like getting bombed right behind him in the same shot.
So he's saying that every time he sees somebody from the Trump administration open their mouth, he says, Baghdad Bob is back on television. That's a very good point. Okay, we are going to talk up next. We're going to talk with John King about the GOP, someone in the GOP daring to speak out, speak their conscience for a change, and what's going to happen with the closing of the government, the shutdown of the government. John King is next. You're listening to Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, BPR, GBH, and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Lots of voices on the political far right welcomed President Trump's return to the White House a year ago, but the president's rhetoric on Greenland and transatlantic trade has many Europeans turning on him.
Even amongst kind of more right-wing voters, Trump's behavior is not necessarily super popular.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Brightbound. It's never too early to start thinking about what comes next, and Brightbound helps students from middle school through high school discover rewarding careers. Learn more at brite.bound.org. And Bonsai Bar, hosting pop-up beginner bonsai workshops at breweries across New England. Hands-on classes provide guidance in the basics of bonsai design and care in a group setting. More at bonsaibar.com.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. By the way, it's time to return for all of you who are regulars and irregulars to return to the library. It's warm in here. The sidewalks are totally, shoveled, that sort of thing. Tomorrow at noon, The former ambassador to China and the ambassador to NATO, Nicholas Burns, will join us to talk about Trump's foreign policy. Friday at noon, the governor is here for an hour of Ask the Governor. We're joined now on Zoom by John King. John is CNN's chief national correspondent, the man behind the great reporting project all over the map. Morning, John. Good to see you.
Good morning. It's great to see you. Say hi to Nick for me. He's a good man when you have him in tomorrow.
He is a good man.
So, John King, we've been speaking with our listeners about whether or not this is some tipping point. We're always talking about tipping points in this administration, but thousands of people taken to the streets, Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski being taken to the woodshed, it appears, to talk to Donald Trump for 2 hours, Bovino taken out of Minnesota. Could this mean a tipping point in terms of ICE nationwide crusade?
I would be careful to have any long-term projections, but there is no doubt that for political reasons, I want to emphasize political reasons, not policy reasons, Donald Trump blinked. And Donald Trump realized this was becoming a political disaster. So he's pulling Bovino out and some of his most aggressive agents out. He's sending in Tom Homan. For a lot of Trump critics, that doesn't seem like a good trade, but Tom Homan is more of a eyes on the ground, trained federal law enforcement official with much more deep experience. And to your very important point and a critical point, sidelining Secretary of Homeland Security and her deputy, Corey Lewandowski, who is known, of course, to many of your listeners, just north of the border in New Hampshire.
Right.
So what happens now? There's no question when you see the President of the United States suddenly saying nice things about Governor Walz and nice things about the mayor of Minneapolis, that Trump sees a problem. The question is you were just having the conversation about Trump always constantly changing the subject or people maybe not having the attention span. Will they just try to calm things down for a day or two and then try to move on to something else? The president's traveling to Iowa today to talk about the economy. We are in a midterm election year. I'd just say a couple of quick things. This has put the president and his party in an even deeper ditch than we talked about when I was here just a week ago. The House is gone, barring divine intervention. The question now is he's going to Iowa. Democrats there think because of dissatisfaction with Trump, and this plays into it, Iowa is next to Minnesota, you're in the Midwest, people of common sense, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, whatever, your eyes don't lie. So when the White House and its team keep constantly lying to you about what's happening on the streets of Minneapolis, it just creates more of a trust deficit. And there are other examples we could get to. But the last thing I'll say is since I think the Tuesday after the inauguration, when we first were starting to see things, I've had a constant theme here, which is Donald Trump is going to force us to think about who we are. Every week, he forces us to think about who we are. And I think you're seeing both on the streets of Minneapolis and in whether it's the NBA Players Association, artists, community groups all across the country, including groups that are more in the middle, not known to be part of, BLM. I'm not criticizing BLM at all here, but I mean, groups that are more in the middle and even to the right of America. Gun rights groups saying, what are you doing here? This gentleman had a permit to be holding that weapon, and there's zero evidence that he brandished it in a threatening way. So you are starting to see some cracks here of people starting to stand up, I think, with different versions of the question that I think is critical for all Americans as we, A, move through this administration, and B, now through an election year, is who are we? And what do we want from our leadership?
I'm really glad you said that. That's beautifully put and I think really important. John, we often praise some of your fellow reporters and anchors at CNN, but I want to praise, I guess, the video producers, whoever. One of the most useful things for me as a consumer and citizen here of what happened after what I consider to be the murder of Alex Preddy was the matching up the statements of Kristi Noem, the head of Homeland Security, with the video as it's actually happening. As she describes what happens, whatever terminology she's used, and everybody's familiar with this, at the exact same moment that was not happening. And I really, whoever is doing that at CNN deserves a lot of praise. I think they're doing a huge public service.
Appreciate that. We have teams that spend a lot of time researching this. Unfortunately, a lot of their experience comes from geolocating things like drone strikes in Ukraine. Being able to actually look at video and be absolutely certain it was shot on that day, because there's a lot of fake stuff out there. There is, unfortunately, a lot of fake stuff out there. And on something like this, it's, I don't mean to minimize this, but if 10 people watched a car accident behind you on Boylston Street, you'd get 10 different perspectives based on where they are. So it's important that our teams look at every single piece of available video and then constantly update it as they get more of that. You're absolutely right. Those videos show that the administration They come out in the first seconds where nobody knows. Nobody knows exactly what happened. It's impossible to know exactly what happened. You're still in the tragedy and the crisis of the situation in the moment. And you haven't been able to interview all of the witnesses yet. And they say he's a domestic terrorist. Or in Renee's Good case, she turned and drove at the agent. I was in Iowa on my latest reporting trip when the Renee Good thing happened. And it was stunning to me how quickly AM talk radio is still huge out in farm country. How quickly, I've seen the video, it's definitive, she attacked him, she did this. Now that's not true. Right? There may be some nuance, there may be some debate about some video, but that's simply not true. And you haven't seen enough angles yet and been able to make that judgment. But that's what they do to try to lock their people in. So thank you for complimenting our team. I want to compliment the two of you and people like you all over the country who come back at this the day after and the day after and the day after, because the only way to break through the media cocoon some people have decided to live in is to keep talking about these things. And that doesn't mean there won't be something important tomorrow to talk about, but find 5 minutes or 3 minutes to talk about this again when there's new evidence available. Because we have to break through the people who are either living in a cave or living in a house with only, Fox News or OAN, who don't see these things.
Yeah, they don't.
Marjorie made a very important point a minute ago. Fox actually yesterday had one of their reporters saying, the video does not match what Kristi Noem is telling you. The video does not match what the White House and its team is telling you. That to me was a sign of, if Trump's watching that at the White House, it's like, ruh-roh. I don't mean to minimize this, but he only moves when he sees political fallout. And he is moving now. We'll see how long it goes.
Well, it's interesting, too, if the other Rupert Murdoch owned, New York Post and the Wall Street Journal have both been pretty critical here, too. So you wonder if even Murdoch said something. I don't know. But Fox hasn't certainly gone all the way, but they have done more than I thought they would.
John, I want to...
Your eyes don't lie. I mean, your eyes... It's just... I don't even know what to say about this, right? It's just your eyes don't lie. And so when people in positions of authority, whether they're cabinet secretaries or the head of ICE details, just flat out lie to you, people will figure this out eventually. People of all political persuasions, enough of them.
Well, you know what also I thought about Kristi Noem? I know I've said this before, but this is a woman who wrote in her book about how she dragged her misbehaving puppy to a gravel pit and shot the dog to death. And that wasn't enough. She got a nasty, mean goat and shot the goat to death in the same day. I mean, who does that? Who shoots a puppy that was misbehaving because it ate a chicken or something like that?
Same kind of person who said she had a good meeting with Kim Jong-un.
Well, exactly.
And never did.
I mean, I don't know why she's running anything. I can't believe she got as far as she did in politics.
I think there are a number of people in this administration, and sometimes including the President of the United States, who have a very strange definition and a strange way of what they think is projecting strength.
Yeah.
What they think is projecting authority. What they think is projecting, you need to respect me. As opposed to, in her case, look, we've said this from the very beginning when we were going through the cabinet picks, that some of these people are clearly in jobs for which they do not have enough experience. This is one of the most sensitive, complicated jobs in the United States government. The Attorney General, who's now, I think, 6 weeks behind, the Epstein files deadline, don't think that any of this other stuff is not a distraction from that, by the way, is doing a job that is just so complicated. It's not a personal criticism. She's never done anything this big before. It's like saying, hey, John, the astronauts are sick. Can you fly them up to the space shuttle for us on Tuesday? Go spend a couple hours in the simulator and fly to the space shuttle for me. Or bat cleanup for the Red Sox this year. Or maybe play running back for Drake May in the Super Bowl. They have just put people in positions. And again, the CEO is responsible. Watch here and see. It's a midterm election year. Donald Trump doesn't like to admit he's wrong. Will there be some personnel changes here, at least in who's calling the shots long term, not just Tom Homan for a few days in Minneapolis? I don't know the answer to that question, but because he doesn't like to make mistakes. But this is a legacy of the decisions he made during the transition to put certain people in positions, whether you support them or not, whatever your politics are, for which they just have zero experience for the complexity and the complications of the job.
So, John King, immediately after the killing of Alex Preddy, a number of Democratic senators, and it's grown in number, have said they won't vote for, I think it's a $64 billion Department of Homeland Security budget extension, $10 billion, I think, of which is ICE. One, are they going to hold together enough to stop that funding? And two, I'm unclear about what the consequence is. If that were to happen and the Republicans can't get the 60 necessary votes in the Senate, does that shut down the whole government, or would the impact purely be on Homeland Security? And if it's only them, what would the impact be?
So if they policy first, if they pass the other funding measures and they separate out, that's what Schumer's now asking soon. Pull out DHS as part of a bigger bill that has other departments in it. He's saying pull it out and let's do that separately. Therefore, you could fund all the other things in the government, right? And do you then, does that shut down DHS? DHS does a lot of very important things. I know people are very angry, legitimately so, for what they've seen in the streets of Minneapolis and elsewhere, streets of Boston, streets of Maine right now. Going right now. It's a big question, exactly how that would play out. Could the Trump administration, move some money around to keep some things going? But it's both a policy statement and a giant political statement for the Democrats. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Was it worth the risk, right? Do Democrats look soft? Do they play into Trump's hand politically by doing this? The fact that you see Democrats from Schumer on down so aggressive on this tells you they understand the politics have changed in a way that invite them and actually require them for their own voters to be more aggressive on the policy front. I'll give you this example. John Fetterman, the Democratic senator from Pennsylvania, who has kind of been out there a little bit saying, Trump has the right to do this. Americans voted for tougher immigration policy. He wants Kristi Noem to leave her job. He says she's not doing her job and she needs to go. So if the Democrats have John Fetterman on board, that tells you the breadth of the incoming they are getting from people. And it's easy to understand why. I mean, I'm almost somewhat reluctant to talk about this politically because we have a crisis of character happening on the streets of America. But we are in an election year. And so will the Democrats actually block DHS funding? Will DHS go to a zero? I don't know that that's going to happen. And there are other ramifications about our airports and about, counterterrorism and things like that, where that's an important and consequential debate. But the fact that they are so emboldened to say, we want an accounting on this. We're going to use that debate to have an accounting. We want Kristi Noem in the chair. We want Greg Bovino in the chair. We want people at the White House in the chair, and we want to ask questions. The challenge is the Democrats are in the minority. Will the Republicans go along? And will we have, for really the first time in this administration, with the possible exception of the brief Epstein files moment, actual oversight of the executive branch?
John, you only gave me 2/3 of an answer. And the last third, I want to be clear. If the Republican leadership doesn't agree to separate Homeland Security funding out and continues to have it as part of the big pile.
It's possible Democrats could walk away and you can't fund the government.
Then you couldn't fund the government. Okay.
It's absolutely, that is one of the what ifs down the road. Absolutely.
Before things seem to be turning in a good way, at least in my estimation, we had the Attorney General Pam Bondi telling the officials out in Minnesota that they get ICE out of Minneapolis and Minnesota if they handed over essentially all the voter rolls to the federal government. That seems to be in the rearview mirror now, but that was basically saying this wasn't about Somali fraud. This wasn't about immigration. It was about a way to intimidate a state so that the feds could run the election in Minnesota. What are we to make of that?
This is lighting another fire on your front lawn and a fire on your neighbor's lawn while they run in the back door to do what they want to do. Because they keep saying this is about fraud and they need the voter rolls to deal with fraud. This is about either one of those things. This is about, you can deal with the fraud. The fraud is a legitimate issue. And the state and the federal government need to find a way. And the state government they've actually been working with the federal government going back to the Biden administration. I said this a couple of weeks ago. Have they been as public about it? Have they been as forceful about saying how important this is? I don't think they have been, the Democratic leadership in Minnesota. However, that has absolutely nothing to do with Renee Good being shot or Mr. Preddy being shot. It just doesn't. You might say we sent in federal agents because we needed a beef up presence because we're investigating fraud and we thought, whatever. That does not justify the conduct of those agents, whether you were right or wrong, to send them there. A fraud investigation is led primarily by white-collar attorneys, the forensic people where'd the money go, who did it go to, was it spent properly? Not ICE agents with masks on who sometimes don't turn their body cameras on. Not at all. And the voter roll thing, we've seen this play out in other states. What is the end game? Look, the president keeps talking about 2020 again, right? He's back on the 2020 again. I have no idea what he's going to do in November, but I listen to Trump critics who say he is trying to set the predicate and going after these voting rolls is part of it to say in November, if Democrats take back the House, which is a near certainty at the moment, we think these elections were rigged. We think they were fraudulent. Speaker Johnson, don't sit those Democrats. When they're asking, number one, most judges so far in different lawsuits, California's one, there have been some others, Only red states have turned over their voting rolls. Most judges are saying, read the Constitution. Washington, Pam Bondi, read the Constitution. This is a state authority to run your own elections. I would say this. They did have a bunch of red states turn over their voting rolls. If you can show that there's this massive fraud on the voter rolls, that all these undocumented have been voting illegally, like you've been saying for 10 years now with zero evidence, you have a bunch of red states who gave you this information. Prove it. Prove it.
So,
and
John,
then make your demand for the blue states now. See why we need it. But they haven't done that, have they?
Talking to John King. John, we only have 5 minutes left. Can you take the whole 5 minutes and in excruciating detail describe the framework that was agreed to around Greenland when Trump was in Europe that caused him to say he doesn't need to own Greenland anymore? Take all the time you need, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wish we had an actual piece of paper that we could read from. But I think that this was, and actually, we're laughing about this because Greenland's like our humor break. Right, we're watching Americans gunned down on the streets. We're watching what I think most people would think is a very overly aggressive use of power and authority in law enforcement by the Trump administration. Public opinion on that question is off the charts. And so now we're going to laugh about something that a week ago, actually, and today still, is undermining the global world order. As the prime minister of our neighbor to the north, a friendly gentleman who wants to have an economic partnership with the United States, saying, you know what, to Mr. Trump. I'm not going to say it on family-friendly public radio, but we'll live, if we have to live on our own, we will. We are a sovereign nation. Yes, you're our neighbor, but fine. You want us to do it alone, we'll do it alone. You have a lot of European leaders, even like the Italian prime minister, people to the right, people that have been more or less ideologically aligned with Trump, saying, no, the European Union just cut a trade deal with India. They've been negotiating for 20 years. Why do you think they suddenly found a breakthrough? Because they can't trust the United States anymore. They won't trust the United States anymore. So they're trying to find new markets and new power. The Greenland framework doesn't exist, Jim, in terms of a written document that everybody can sign. But this is a classic example of Trump manufacturing a crisis and then saying he solved the crisis. By my understanding of it, the United States will have free access to military bases like it has had for decades in Greenland. And there may be some enhancements. And there may possibly be down the road some agreement on rare minerals, which is a conversation, especially given technology and plus the combination of climate change with the Chinese and the Russians operating up there is more of a pressing current issue now. So in other words, it looks like we get everything we had before and rational conversations about what should be changed given the changing circumstances, both in our economies and in our national security issues. None of this had to be a crisis. None of it. The Europeans said beforehand they were willing to sit down at the table and talk about it.
And by the way, a reminder at noon tomorrow, Nicholas Burns, former ambassador to China and NATO.
You want someone to slice this for you in a very ask kit.
Okay.
So I think we'll be on the same page roughly, but he'll have more details.
All right, we got 2 minutes left, John. You want to talk about the Patriots?
Yes, he does.
Yes. Well, look, I just think it's fantastic, right? I think that for a team that won 4 games 2 seasons in a row, it's a great moment for New England. And again, with sports are supposed to be our release, right? There's a lot of stresses in our life right now. What's happening on the streets of Minneapolis, the rejiggering of the world order and mistrust of our allies. Just everybody's normal life. Prices aren't down as fast as you'd like. You're shoveling out the snow. You're mad the snowplow blocked your driveway in right after you shoveled the damn thing out. I get it, right? So that's where we are right now. So to have something magical, amen, and a credit to them. And so I cannot tell you. I have my 14-year-old and I have my 2 older kids, and the older ones are a little spoiled because they remember the Brady era. My younger one thinks this is what's supposed to happen, but even he got it. I think I said this last week. Jonah and I bet at the beginning of the season. Jonah's my 14-year-old. I said they'd win 6 games. He said I was nuts. They'd win 5 at the most. So here we are. We're going to the Super Bowl.
I just want to.
So glad to be wrong.
Yeah, we're thrilled.
I want to say, I totally agree with you. It's the release. We're going to talk to Trenni Casey from NBC Sports Boston later. I also want to commend people in the sports world who've had the courage, like the coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, the coach of the Warriors, Charles Barkley, Steph Curry, for speaking up in defense of the Constitution and justice and accountability in terms of what happened on the streets of Minneapolis. Takes a lot of courage, and they have a big platform, and good for them. So, John, we'll talk to you
thank
next
you very
week.
much. Great to talk to you as always.
Be well. Thanks for your time.
Have a good week. Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.
We have been speaking with John King, CNN's chief national correspondent, the man behind the great reporting project All Over the Map, where he goes all over the country to speak to voters about their issues. We say goodbye to those of you listening on NAPM. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure to tune in to the fabulous 413 at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Meanwhile, our show keeps going here in Boston. Coming up after the new news in 89.7 GBH, State Auditor Diana DiZoglio joins us here at the library on her continued efforts to audit the legislature and some non-disclosures going on at some of these state agencies costing millions of dollars. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NAPM live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Babson College, where you can advance your career with an MBA or specialized master's at the school ranked number 2 best college in the United States by the Wall Street Journal 2025. Babson.edu/grad programs. The next American Masters explores the incredible life of Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor and Nobel Peace Prize-winning author of Night. Don't miss Elie Wiesel, Soul on Fire, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations.
I'm Jim Browdy, head of
Other
Hour
contributors
2,
include
live from the library. Auditor Diana DiZoglio has been attempting to audit the legislature since a law giving her authority to do just that was overwhelmingly passed by voters in 2024. Still nothing. Now she's at odds with the Attorney General, who said on BPR the auditor has not responded to crucial questions from her office. We'll talk about it with the auditor.
I'm Marjorie Egan. I guess it's back to On-Air Fuse as Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung joins us to respond to Boston Mayor Michelle Wu after being called out on our airwaves over the city's plan to put a new Madison Park High School on Parcel 3 in Dorchester. Then we'll check in with Edgar B. Herwick III ahead of the launch of his brand new Curiosity Desk show. That's all next. Hour number 2, BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
President Trump is heading to Iowa today, where he is looking to recapture the narrative. NPR's Frank Ordonez reports Trump hopes to turn the page back to his economic agenda as his administration faces growing backlash over his immigration crackdown in Minnesota.
The White House says the trip is the beginning of what will soon be weekly travel ahead of the midterm elections. But veteran strategist Ryan Williams says clearly Trump is looking to wrestle back the national conversation after a second death at the hands of federal agents.
The primary news story at the moment isn't just the ICE-related shooting, it's the response to the ICE-related shooting. That's what's going to be the focus, and the president can attempt to focus on the economy, on what he views are successes of his administration on the economic front, but he's going to be stuck talking about this issue for a significant period of time.
Some Republicans are calling for further investigations and questioning Trump's broader goals with the crackdown. Franco Ordonez, NPR News.
The National Transportation Safety Board is holding a hearing today on the factors that they believe led to the deadly mid-air collision last year between a Black Hawk helicopter and a passenger jet above Washington, D.C. 67 people died last January when the helicopter and American Airlines plane collided near Reagan National Airport. The meeting is set to outline the multiple safety systems that failed that caused the crash. NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy, in her opening statement, said that the crowded airspace surrounding Reagan National cannot solely be blamed for the tragedy.
Within a robust system, the introduction of a single error is almost never the only cause of an accident.
Rather, several barriers of defense must fail for the error to lead to an accident.
The leaders of longtime U.S. allies are making high-profile trips to China, seeking a thaw in relations with Beijing at a time of tension with the United States. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is heading to China today. NPR's Lauren Frere has this from London.
After Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney visited China, President Trump threatened 100% tariffs against Canadian goods and predicted that China would, quote, eat Canada alive. Now, as British Prime Minister Starmer heads to Beijing, Eurasia Group analyst Mujtaba Rahman says
he's going to have to be very careful not to annoy Donald Trump, but clearly believes there are economic returns from a deeper and more cooperative relationship with Beijing.
This is the first visit to China by a British Prime Minister. Is bringing a plane load of British CEOs with him. As he reduces dependence on the U.S., he's seeking to woo investment instead from the world's second largest economy, China. Lauren Frere, NPR News, London.
The Dow is now down 360 points. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Nantucket residents impacted by the Vineyard Wind turbine failure in July of 2024 can now submit damage claims. According to a press release from the town, individuals and business owners can submit claims at nantucketbladesettlement.com now through June 26. Qualified parties will be reimbursed for their economic losses using money from the town's settlement with the company that manufactured the faulty blade, which was GE Vernova. In that settlement, the town is awarded $10.5 million that came about a year after the blade broke off the turbine and the turbine fell into the ocean, sending debris into the water that eventually washed up on Nantucket beaches and some beaches along the Cape seashore. Company Versus is overseeing the claims process, and more information about required documentation on the Nantucket Town website, which is nantucket-ma.gov. In sports, the Bruins host Nashville at the Garden tonight. They're into the quarterfinals at the Australian Open. Coco Gauff is out. In the forecast, clouds in low 20s today, cloudy and low single digits overnight. We're talking like 4, 5, 6 degrees overnight tonight. And partly cloudy, low 20s tomorrow, mostly sunny, mid-20s on Thursday. And weather prognosticators say it's still too early to tell, but it's possible we could be looking at a nor'easter come the weekend. 20 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Fisher Investments. Fisher's dedicated team of specialists provide resources on investing, retirement income, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The auditor is here. I don't have to introduce her again. She's right over there. I'll talk to her in a second. Tomorrow at noon, we're going to be joined by the former ambassador to NATO, Nicholas Burns. He's going to be here on Friday from noon to 1. The governor
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow she's here?
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Burns.
Burns is going to be here tomorrow.
Yep.
Friday is going to be the governor from noon to 1. That's, of course, Maura Healey. She'll be here at the Boston Public Library taking our questions and yours if you want to come over and ask yourself a question yourself. And starting on Monday, our show is going to be ending at 1 o'clock instead of 2. And we're very grateful to our bosses for allowing us to do that. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. It's been more than a year since voters overwhelmingly passed a ballot measure supporting an audit of the legislature. 71% voted yes. State Auditor Diana DiZoglio, the driving force behind the ballot question, has yet to do the audit. She blames the legislature, the governor, the attorney general for blocking your efforts to bring transparency to the State House. We're going to try to move the ball forward a little, as we try to do every time the auditor or the attorney general is here. We'll see how we do. Good to see you, Auditor DiZoglio.
Great to be back on GBH, everyone.
Yes,
thank you so much
for coming in on this snowy day. So we want to play a little sound for you and for our audience here. This was when the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, was with us earlier this month. Here's the Attorney General.
Anytime an agency comes to us and asks us to represent them, we ask them a certain amount of questions, they reply, and then we move forward or not. The only agency or constitutional office we have had any issue with since I've taken office is the auditor. And it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of trying to resolve this. There is a pathway forward. She still has to answer certain questions, and she has not provided us those answers.
So I want to know what you think about that.
I think that is the Attorney General's attempt to characterize me as some lunatic up on Beacon Hill.
Could you move your mic up about
yes,
half?
absolutely.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Right now, and the way it's always been up on Beacon Hill, friends, is if you step out of line, they circle the wagons and they shoot at you to make you step back into line. That's why your state representatives and senators, you really can't find many who have taken one vote off from the Speaker or the Senate President. Most of your legislators have a 100% voting record with the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, because to veer off, even just on one vote, causes a tremendous amount of retaliation, and they isolate you from the group, and they treat you like you don't belong there. And that's basically the Attorney General saying to me, one of these things does not belong. What the Attorney General should have said is, I am the only one who is suing the most powerful politicians on Beacon Hill right now. It is true. I am the only one who is suing the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. I am the only one who is standing up on this issue up there. And yes, it has put a big target on my back, but I am doing that because 72% of you told me not to give up and to push for this, and I am going to continue to push for this audit. And yes, if I need to be the only one doing that, then so be it.
Let's be clear, though. You're not suing them because you can't sue them as a constitutional office holder unless the Attorney General agrees to represent you. You want to sue them to comply with the ballot question. Is that accurate?
We are attempting to sue them,
Okay.
yes, Jim, and that is more accurate. Thank you for that. And the way that we're trying to do that is we are actually trying to work with a special assistant attorney general at no cost to the taxpayer. The Attorney General, just because she has refused to represent our office or sue them herself, which she could do, the Attorney General could sue me, she could sue the legislature, she could sue anybody she wants at any given time. She does not want to sue the legislature, so I have in turn had to ask her to, at bare minimum, allow my office to sue the legislature. And I've even given her an out and said, Madam Attorney General, you clearly don't want to do this, so let me hire an outside attorney to represent my office.
But the lawyer you picked, who is, I think, running for the Republican nomination for governor, she says there could be or is an ethics issue. So
Actually, yeah, the person that's slated to represent us, it's George Vienne. He is not running for governor or any other office.
How about this Minogue guy?
Mike Minogue is a new candidate for governor, announced that after his decision to reach out as a concerned citizen to our office, unsolicited, and offer to fund the attorney to represent us, citing the fact that he was aware that the Attorney General was refusing to represent us. And I said, thank you.
But
we
that,
appreciate
she says
you
that may
saving
be an
taxpayer dollars.
She said that may be an ethics problem.
Sure, she can say whatever she wants. That's her right as the Attorney General. But the State Ethics Commission actually provided guidance to our office and to the attorneys representing us, stating that so long as our attorney gets appointed as a special assistant attorney general, which is what we're asking, he may receive payment from a private entity. They said there is no ethics issue with that. If the attorney general doesn't believe us and says she disagrees, she's welcome to file an ethics complaint against our office and see where that goes. But we are confident in our position. We have articulated that to the attorney general's office. And I would add, I believe that this is political on the part of the Attorney General, because nobody has said that it was wrong for Governor Baker to accept a free, privately funded, so-called independent investigation that is known as the Pearlstein
For
report.
the soldiers' homes.
With the soldiers' home. That was a gift to the citizens of this Commonwealth. That was not taxpayer funded, and the governor's office accepted that. And unfortunately, what we have is a problem with this particular lawsuit because we are suing the powers that be. But at that time, that was allowed to be given to the governor's office. Nobody sued. Nobody made a stink about that. That was able to be accepted. And now we all of a sudden have a problem with it.
Now, just a couple of things. We don't want to spend the whole time on this, but because you're doing some other things that I think will
Including
matter
the
a lot
soldiers' home.
to the taxpayers. But two or three more quick things here. When the Attorney General was here, she promised she would provide us with questions that she had asked you in your office that you had not, in her opinion, appropriately answered. Unfortunately, we didn't get them She was here several weeks ago till last night, so I'm not really prepared to intelligently broach them. But you know what they are. So first question, quickly if you can. She says you finally, I think, answered who the defendants were, who you'd like sued. But there's some other issues around legislative privilege, those sort of things. Is your position that you've answered all her questions? Every question she's asked, you're nodding in agreement. The answer is yes. Then why is she saying you have not?
It's gaslighting, Jim. Look, the first thing that the Attorney General said in her email to GBH, which I was made privy to, was that this is the first time that our office has ever listed out the defendants in this case. But if you go back to the February 27th, 2025 letter that our office sent to the Attorney General, there is a whole bulleted section of exactly who the defendants are listed out. But
Speaker, Senate President, House Clerk, Senate Clerk, right?
Right, and we said even the Secretary of the Commonwealth could be pulled in depending on whether his office holds the records, right? So we listed out the defendants, but yet this morning, the Attorney General's office is stating that this is the first time we've ever listed out the defendants. It's just on its face false. It is very easy to pull the record and see that we've answered all these questions. It's a stall tactic. That's all it is.
And by the way, when we have more time, again, we didn't have it because we didn't get it till last night, to look at the responses, we will share with listeners at least what our position is on who's right in this thing. Two other very quick things. The voters voted for this thing overwhelmingly. Has the governor offered to try to facilitate a resolution here, whatever you want to call it?
Governor Healy hasn't spoken to me about official business in roughly a year.
She hasn't talked to you?
She says hello to me at public events, but that's it.
Okay, well then Marjorie just used the word mediator. Let me end this here if I can. We offered,
like a divorce.
We offered about 3 or 4 or 5 months ago to have you and the Attorney General on the show together. So it wasn't you at one portion of the month saying one thing, 2 weeks later she says another thing, etc. You accepted, she did not, which by the way it's unconventional and it's totally fine. We have another proposal for you, Marjorie and I, as of this morning. I would argue one of the most respected jurists, former jurist now in Massachusetts, is Nancy Gertner, who's on our show quite regularly. We spoke to Nancy Gertner and asked her if she'd be willing to mediate the dispute between you. You didn't, by the way, the auditor did not know about this till I'm saying it this second. Judge Gertner offered to mediate the dispute between you and the Attorney General and hopefully get the will of the public actually implemented. Would you agree to have Gertner do that?
I don't know much about this particular individual. I will get back to you on that, and here's my response to as why that's the case. While I am happy to talk publicly with the Attorney General, the Governor, the Senate President, the Speaker, and all of them at once, actually, I would invite on to the show, and they can all debate me at the same time, and I'll answer every single one of their questions publicly. Here's what I'll say about this particular person.
Judge Gertner, yeah.
The judge. This is the first time, this is actually probably getting out here publicly. This year, Jim, is the first time in the history of the Commonwealth that I just had 2 justices contact my office and say that due to the Attorney General's position against the legislature being audited, that they don't want to be audited anymore either. This was the appeals court, and this was also the, Michael, who was the other court? Trial court.
Explain again. They reached out to your office and said what?
So Judge Brieger and Judge Blake, Judge Heidi Brieger and Judge Amy Blake, told our office that they now refuse to comply with an audit from the Office of State Auditor. Do you know what we were trying to audit? Their website accessibility for disabled persons to make sure that people could get access to records from the courts. They refused to participate in the audit, and what they did is they said, Attorney General Campbell sent a letter to the legislature saying that she doesn't believe that they need to be audited. Therefore, we essentially want in on this, and we are no longer going to be audited by your office either. This is a constitutional crisis here in the state of Massachusetts, and I am now supposed to go before the courts and trust that they are going to give us a fair trial and a fair hearing on this issue. My trust and faith in the judiciary right now is at an all-time low. And I know I'm not saying differently than what a lot of people feel right now, but when you, for the first time in history, decide that you're going to get in on the lack of transparency and accountability.
But they've been audited
That's the
before?
subject. Absolutely. They've been audited throughout history. This is the first time.
Diana DiZoglio, one last thing from me, and then we really will move on. You basically are standing here saying the Attorney General's gaslighting you, that Healy does not, what would you say, care about this, or is not willing to get involved in this, not offered to get involved in this, that the judges are scheming against you. I mean, you seem to be saying that essentially the whole infrastructure of state government, other than you yourself, are collaborating in some fashion to ensure you can't do your. Is that a fair statement?
I would actually say that the people of this Commonwealth are the ones who are on the outside, and I am one of everyone else. I'm one of the millions of people who feel disenfranchised. I happen to be elected, so I have a platform to talk about this. Okay. But the second that I step off of this platform, I talk to everyday people in the grocery stores I'm in, when I am out and about, when I'm doing regular day-to-day activities, when I'm outside shoveling the snow and talking to my neighbors. They feel disenfranchised. They feel like the system is broken. And all I'm saying is what we are collectively feeling as the people of Massachusetts, which is that there are conversations happening behind the scenes. You know, I was at the Governor's State of the State the other night, and while I was sitting there, I had Judge Brieger sitting next to me, and she introduced herself to me. And I said to her, "Thank you, I know who you are." And I told her I was very disappointed with the fact that she has refused to be audited and caused more distrust in the judiciary, and I believe it was unnecessary. And I further said, and I can see that you have a good relationship with A.G. Campbell, because A.G. Campbell came right over to her, and Judge Brieger stood up and said something to the effect of, "I love what you're doing." So they have a relationship, right? People are allowed to have relationships and friendships, friends, but when there's that type of relationship, when everybody sort of knows each other and judges get appointed through Beacon Hill, it's hard to take on Beacon Hill when you're an average everyday person, because everybody already knows each other and they're friends and they all work together, right? So there are absolutely concerns about all those conversations happening behind the scenes. And you know, again, we're supposed to trust that we're going to go to the courts right now and get a fair trial when the courts themselves are saying, wow, we don't have to be audited anymore. This is great. Let's stop being audited. And then I am, of course, as the Attorney General said, painted to be this crazy lady who's just saying stuff that's so outlandish. But friends, you know, when I see you out, because people tell me they hear me on the show all the time and they come over to me, that when I talk to people, people are expressing the same concerns that I am expressing here. I am not coming up with this on my own. I am hearing this from the general public, and then I am articulating it over the radio waves and telling you what's happening from the pulpit that my office provides me with. And that's doing my job.
One last thing. Okay. Please let us know soon if you would be agreeable to Judge Gertner serving as a mediator. We're going to make the same offer to the Attorney General's office. We're talking to the Auditor Diana DiZoglio.
So I want to get on to this non-disclosure agreement. People they became most notorious during the Catholic sex abuse case, when it turns out the Catholic Church was making all these non-disclosure agreements with children who had been raped and abused, and so no one would know they'd been raped and abused. And when you were a very young legislative aide up at the State House, I would think it's fair to say you kind of got coerced into signing a non-disclosure agreement. They were supposed to be outlawed. They were outlawed, banned by Governor Healy. I think it was last year. But you have found that even though that some of them have continued even after that ban. So tell us about what's going on with these non-disclosure agreements at Massport and elsewhere.
I'm going to catch everybody up real quick. I was sexually harassed in the House of Representatives when I was a younger woman in my 20s, serving as a legislative aide. I was subsequently fired due to that ongoing harassment. They tried to, through the Speaker of the House's office, require that I sign a taxpayer-funded NDA. That's a non-disclosure agreement, barring me from talking about anything I'd seen, witnessed, or experienced behind the closed doors on Beacon Hill. Under duress, because they were holding my severance package hostage unless I signed. I did sign at that time in my 20s. I subsequently, after I got elected to the House of Representatives, broke that non-disclosure agreement on the House floor, called out the fact that the Speaker of the House was lying and saying that they didn't use those types of agreements, because I myself had one, so I knew that they did, and that was false. I showed everybody the non-disclosure agreement, let everybody know what happened. I subsequently filed legislation as a senator, and that legislation passed in the Senate, but it didn't pass in the House. That legislation bans the use of taxpayer-funded NDAs across state government to prevent cover-ups of illegal or unethical behavior such as harassment, discrimination, and abuse across our state agencies. The Senate did, via a bill that I filed, ban the abuse of those agreements in the Senate. But nowhere else in government is it unlawful to use these non-disclosure agreements. The governor did after I became auditor when I released a report of settlement agreements that exist, including those confidentiality clauses. I released a report that highlighted millions and millions of dollars that had gone out with confidentiality provisions restricting the right of employees to speak about what had happened, correct? And one of those big agreements was over at the Convention Center Authority, which has been under tremendous scrutiny. Recently, it was a $1.2 million settlement that was executed unlawfully and concealed allegations of racial discrimination and retaliation. The governor, on the heels of that report, as we were releasing it, knowing that it was coming out, did implement policies for executive branch agencies that prohibit them from executing these non-disclosure agreements. However, even though I commend the governor for taking action at that time, that action was limited. What we need to do, and I've said this repeatedly, is we need to pass a law. Why do we need to pass a law? Because there are no teeth in the policies that were implemented. People can still violate those policies with no consequence, legally speaking at least. But also, quasi-public agencies such as Massport don't fall under the executive branch provisions, right? State colleges and universities are not, technically speaking, executive branch agencies. So all of these folks are allowed to execute non-disclosure agreements to cover up a host of allegations that are allegations about unlawful behavior. And they have been doing that. In our most recent audit that we just released of settlement agreements across Massachusetts in state government, we identified a nearly $1.4 million settlement that went out from Massport a couple of years ago that covered up a host of allegations, including but not limited to gender-based discrimination, disability-based discrimination, and issues pertaining to retaliation. Now, get this, Massport wants to argue that they don't believe that they're taxpayer funded because they're able to generate their own revenue. My argument to that is I wouldn't be able to audit them if they were a private business. They do receive taxpayer funds by way of the fact that they utilize public land and public resources, have tax-exempt status. They don't pay interest on their bonds. So we, the taxpayers, are indeed funding Massport. That is why they are a quasi-public agency and not a private entity like Walmart or like General Electric. But nonetheless, they're trying to distract away from their use of these confidentiality clauses and this exorbitant expenditure of funds to cover up whatever happened, trying to distract. So I am calling right now on the governor's office and the legislature to get it together when it comes to this issue. We should have passed this law long ago.
You've also, didn't your office say there was something like 260 of these agreements between 2019 and 2024 in state government?
6.8 million.
Yeah, roughly, 6.8 million. Thanks, Marjorie. And 263 settlement agreements were entered into, totaling nearly $6.8 million. That's a big deal, friends. We need to make sure that there's some oversight and accountability. I also want to add, Jim, I am suing Massport. Massport and this administration and this attorney general have also, for the first time in history, this is a year of firsts that we're bringing up here, but for the first time in history, have stated that they don't believe that the auditor's office should have access to personnel records in order to complete our audits. If any member that says that they don't want us to review them, that's problematic. Because,
how are you suing them without a lawyer?
We are saying that the Attorney General is conflicted out because she has already sided with Massport on this particular issue and stated that she believes that we shouldn't have access to personnel records. Now, I need to explain to everyone, the Office of State Auditor reviews private information all the time. We look at children's medical records when we audit DCF, for example. Can you imagine if this is going to be the case moving forward? That our office, and we have audited these things before, our last report of DCF looked at children's mental health and their prescriptions and whether or not DCF was doing its due diligence, and we found that they were not when it came to these children. And we called on them to, augment their services and better protect these children. If what these folks are saying right now, for the first time in history, is held up by the courts, that means we will not be able to audit a DCF worker's personnel records anymore to make sure that they treated a child correctly. We will not be able to audit personnel records at elder affairs to make sure that they treated a person who is part of the senior community and an elder in our communities correctly. It would essentially render the Office of State Auditor completely helpless in these audits.
We are over, but we're literally up 60 seconds because the subject is so important. We talked a lot at the time about 76 veterans dying in the Holyoke during COVID, 31 at the Chelsea Soldiers Home. Very briefly, what are you trying to do there, and are there obstacles to you doing it? Really briefly.
We audited the Holyoke Soldiers Home. The governor unlawfully withheld records from the Baker administration period in office, citing attorney-client privilege. The Pearlstein report has communications, right? Yeah. We are seeking records from the Pearlstein report, which was alleged to have been an independent investigation, but it's being claimed that those records are attorney-client privilege. So we're essentially saying if it was an independent investigation, Pearlstein was not acting as an attorney for Governor Baker at the time. So which one is it? Was the independent investigation done, or was Pearlstein acting on behalf of the governor?
Okay, next time you're on, we'll go into that in more detail, but thank you so much.
And also, you have another ballot question, likely on the ballot this November. We'll talk about that again, too.
Vote for public records reform and act to increase access to public records, friends. It will make all the documents that we've been being blocked by the state in the state auditor's office. It will make those financial records, those administrative records, those state contracts, all subject to public record, so that if they end up being able to block me, we're working just to make all those records directly available to you, the residents of Massachusetts. So any one of you can call and get access to those receipts yourself if we pass this in November.
Diana DiZoglio, thanks for your time.
Diana DiZoglio,
Good to see you.
And as always, we've been speaking with Massachusetts State Auditor Diana DiZoglio, and we thank you so much for coming up for this quick break. After this quick break, I should say, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung is here on a little dust-up between Shirley and Mayor Wu. We're going to talk about that. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is BPR 89.7 at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
How did the MBTA get its colors? What's the difference between a spider web and a cobweb?
This is stuff that I never even thought about. Wow.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Join me Monday for a new show on GBH 89.7, The Curiosity Desk. We'll explore everyday mysteries hidden right under our noses.
Of all of our senses, smell is the most mysterious.
The Curiosity Desk, weekdays at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. UMass, the state's flagship public research university, empowers students to be the future in the pursuit of progress for Massachusetts and beyond. More at umass.edu. And England. Hands-on classes provide guidance in the basics of bonsai design and care in a group setting. More at bonsaibar.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow at noon, the former ambassador to China and NATO, Nicholas Burns. Friday at noon, the governor, Maura Healey, for an hour of Ask the Governor. And starting Monday, we are a 2-hour show. 11 to 1, the Curiosity Desk will be 1 to 2. Jared will be Culture Show 2 to 3. In fact, Edgar is going to tell us what the first week is going to look like when he joins us right before the 1 o'clock hour. Well, Marjorie, I would say 2 in a row. We're joined now at the library by another person who is troubled by what was said about them on our show. This is a different person. This will be Shirley Leung, Boston Globe business columnist and host of the Say More podcast. Welcome, Shirley.
Hi, you need to rename your show like The Family Feud.
The Family Feud, that's right.
I like it.
But we don't care what you said as long as you call us a top-rated radio show.
That's
we love
right,
that. We absolutely love that.
I specifically, I should have said, was it number 1 in your time slot? Is that the exact wording I should have used?
Unfortunately, we were number 2 in the last book.
Okay, number 2. So that's good. That's
top-rated. Okay, top-rated is good.
So anyway, there's a little dust-up here between the mayor and Shirley Leung about who's right about this particular so-called Parcel 3 and where Madison Park High School is and the new one is hoped for. So here's the mayor response to Shirley saying she was wrong about this.
It was a question from you.
That's right.
About Parcel 3.
It was a question from me
You're
about
going to explain Parcel 3 in a minute after we get the sound.
It's a place that needs to be developed.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, here's Mayor Wu's response to the criticism in Shirley's column on Parcel 3 Madison Park High School site.
Shirley has it wrong here in terms of the initial framing, which it's not true that the P3 Economic Development Project isn't happening because we chose to move forward with Madison Park. The P3 Economic Development Project was not happening on its own.
Okay, and you wrote back to dispute what the mayor had to say. So explain Parcel 3 to people.
All right.
And then tell us why you shot back so effectively in your column.
Well, Parcel 3 is a city-owned land. It's about 8 acres. It's probably one of the largest pieces of undeveloped land the city has. And for decades, the Roxbury community has wanted development there. One time it was BJ's was supposed to go there, anchor at a shopping mall. One time Robert Kraft eyed building a soccer stadium there. And one time back when Governor Deval Patrick was still the governor, he wanted to move MassDOT headquarters from Park Street onto Parcel 3 to help, kickstart some development down there. And so
it's right near police headquarters.
Right, it's right by the Regal Station, across from Boston Police Headquarters, and so the latest plan, which was approved by Mayor Wu's BPDA, was I think in 2023 was going to be life sciences and a lot of affordable housing, and also the new home of an Embrace Center, right? And I think you're having Amari.
Tomorrow, Embrace Boston's head Amari Paris Jeffries will join us, along with Reverend Jeffrey Brown, who is one of the 2 developers that was, for lack of a better expression, is no longer the development of that plot. But go ahead.
Right. So what happened was that Reverend Brown, Tom O'Brien, they put together this big group, and they won the rights to develop P3. And they were going to put life sciences, housing on it.
Like 496 apartments or something?
Right.
That's significant, right?
It's a lot. And so, but then all of a sudden, earlier this month, the Boston Planning Department decided we're going to what they call de-designate the development team, Reverend Brown and Tom O'Brien, and instead we're going to build a Madison Park High School there. This is a VOTEC high school. It's in Roxbury. It actually abuts P3. So it was this kind of, a lot of the community was really shocked. It felt like a top-down decision by Mayor Wu. And where we disagree is that we disagree on this idea that, that development can't happen there, or the timing of it. Like, I understand, I think a lot of us understand that this project did not move forward because the market conditions weren't right. Life sciences is in a glut right now.
Right.
There's too much. Nobody's financing developers to build more lab space.
And by the way, those labs, the investment, that money from the lab was what was going to be used for the affordable housing. Correct?
Right, exactly, and help also build Embrace Center.
Right.
And so right now, the mayor is saying that's not happening. It's true, that is not happening now, but there's a lot of development has stalled across the city. So they were just waiting for the right time to move forward. So where we disagree is on how to move forward in this. I agree. I think this idea to put Madison Park on P3 is a really good idea. It's worth seriously considering. But I also think that instead of waiting she wants to build Madison Park first, or plan Madison Park first, and then afterwards plan development around it. I'm thinking why don't we do it all together? Why can't we plan Madison Park and economic development all at once? I think about
with these people, you think?
With these people, or at least give them a shot. Like, let them come up with the first plan.
But they're saying, see, that's where I'm not 100% clear about the disagreement. It seems to me the mayor's people said, we're going to do Madison Park, and whatever, I think they're calling it the remnant. Whatever space is left over, we, of course, and I'm paraphrasing, want them to compete for it, et cetera.
Right.
The difference, correct me if I'm wrong, seems to be you say, why should they have to compete? They were already accepted 2 years ago, even though they didn't come up with the financing. Just plop them in now and move both these things together at the same time. Is that where the difference is?
Yes, that's the difference. And the thing is, like,
why isn't she doing that?
Well,
she said it's going to slow it down.
Right. I think
is that legit?
Well, that's what has to be. I don't.
And then
I don't
the
write
kids
about
wouldn't
school
have to move. They could stay in Madison Park, the old one, while the new one is being built instead of having to be relocated. That was another reason.
No, I think the community can get behind a Madison Park on P3.
Yeah.
I think the issue is. Why kick off the P3 team right away? Why not give them a shot? They've worked with the community. They've looked at this site, and I can understand why the city's concerned because it does feel like a completely new project. So maybe maybe they need to do another RFP. I don't know what the mechanics are.
Did you talk to Wu after you wrote your column?
I didn't talk to her afterwards.
Oh, you spoke to her before? Well,
maybe she's not calling you back.
Oh, wait a second.
No.
No, apparently you did. Did you speak to her before? So the answer is yes,
anyways,
but it was off the record.
I guess this is. But what the Wu administration has done to propose this, I think, is actually good. I think is actually good to talk about putting Madison Park on this site. I think where I think some members of the community and where I disagree is like I think they should think bigger. I think about what happened to is it Franklin Cummings Tech just down the street in New Beacon Square. That was a VOTech school, and it moved to a new location. It got a lot of nonprofit money, and it took that and it got $60 million in private sector money. I actually think the city can leverage the potential money from state to build this new $700 million school, maybe also leverage private money to say, listen, what kind of development can we build around it? Because this is what
it'd be smaller scale, but they'd be part of the project.
But don't you? Isn't one of the issues? I don't understand the way. But I know when you build a new school, you have to go to the state board, and they have to approve.
Building assistance.
Yes. So is that part of the issue too? That there's some concern about the state boards looking askance?
Yes, that is a concern. But from what I understand, now I'm not a state school building expert, but from what
Marjorie
I understand,
is, by the way, she can
maybe you are, but
we had a couple of people go to jail in my town over building a new school.
But from what I understand, the city is still years away from making a decision on where to site Madison Park and whether or not the state will give it money or how much money. But I think there's an opportunity here because I think about the labor shortage that's happening. I mean, I think about what companies are complaining about. It's like we need more skilled workers, and so this is a chance to get on the ground.
That's right.
It
can't be replaced by AI.
We left another entity that would have benefited from this original plan. Private parking.
Oh, yeah.
We had an opportunity
to
meet two great black entrepreneurs, I think thanks to you. I think they were both in
they
your
were in
column.
an NAACP column.
Right, and we had them on several times after that. And remember when the NAACP convention came here, this thanks to the NAACP, Wu and some others, the vast majority of contractors were black, as they promised. But they also promised that this should just be the beginning, not a one-shot deal. And we've had both those people back, including the person from Private Parking. He would have had a parking lot here in this
parking garage. He would have had equity.
The first of its kind, from what I understand.
First African American to ever have any equity in a parking garage in Fall River, in Boston.
So that falls by the wayside too, should this thing not materialize.
I mean, I'm just hoping that I think there's a meeting next week that the developer is holding. Maybe there's more still time to kind of work out
Did Wu yell at you when she talked to you off the record?
No, she did not yell at me. Of course not.
Can I ask you another Wu question since you're the business columnist for the Globe? I was kidding. Well, I was not kidding. Every time Mayor Wu...
Can I make one more comment about this? Because I know a lot of people are like, but
it's a big deal. It's the biggest parcel of undeveloped land in Boston.
But I guess between, when the Mayor Wu called me out on the radio, I mean, people were like, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. I said, this is what a democracy, a strong democracy,
this is what democracy looks like.
Also, she was not hot. She just she said you're wrong.
Right, and I think I was very polite in my
Jim tells me I'm wrong all the time.
Yeah,
right.
And you don't get to write an op-ed responding.
I know. As someone said to me, it's like, oh, I would advise her not to go after you, Shirley, because you have a platform. you can come back.
By the way, I would prefer more honesty in public by
agreed.
columnists and elected officials than this BS. One other thing, every month that the mayor is here, we ask her the same damn question, is when are we going to get the final figures on White Stadium?
Yes.
Talking about money. Everybody knows that's the deal with the women's soccer team. The final figures couldn't come out at the end of the year as was promised. They'll be out at some point.
Maybe this week maybe the court.
Is that imminent?
Well, no, I thought she said that on your show.
She did?
Yeah, she said either at the end of this month, which is this week.
So do you expect them to happen at the end of this week?
I think in the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping that we'll have some numbers.
And is your analysis that one of the reasons we haven't gotten the numbers, what she says is so many things are changing and there's so many, or because she's concerned that the number is going to be high enough to be upsetting to taxpayers and give ammunition to those who oppose it? And I think people know, even though the tearing down has happened, the work's happening, there's still a case before the state's highest court challenging this whole thing as a private taking of public land. What do you think is the motivation for the slow release of the numbers? Is it legit what she says to us?
I do think I think right now construction, it's very hard to. I think even with commercial developments, it's hard to come up with a number.
Which is what she says.
I think that is true. But I think she also has the power to delay it. I mean, she delayed it till after
she was
the
elected,
November election.
Right,
and she not only delayed it to after her election in November, she also delayed it after her inaugural in January. And so, but she has time. I mean, they haven't, they're still doing, they haven't started what they call vertical construction. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're still kind of negotiating the best price because inflation has driven up costs a lot. Tariffs have driven up costs. So it is a moving target.
Also, if there's a 100% tariff on Canada, which Trump is threatening, what is it? Wood, aluminum, a lot of construction materials are going to be really expensive.
We're
talking to
Shirley
Leung.
Shirley Leung from the Boston Globe. So people may know that Shogun Idowu. Say it again?
I was going to Idowu, but maybe it's Idowu.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I'm sure I was wrong. Idowu.
We know who it is.
Okay. He's been a big deal in the Wu administration for a long time, and he just claimed that he was leaving his position with the city to care for his 98-year-old grandmother, and that may be totally true, but every time a politician leaves to care for a family member, people are very suspicious. You wrote a column about what's going on here. So what's going on?
So many of us have been hearing for weeks, since the beginning of the year, that Shogun was on his way out, and my sources were telling me that he's unhappy with, what's going on with P3, and which affects, the Roxbury community. And so he was allegedly unhappy with Brian Worwell and Mayor.
Explain what that is.
So Brian was a city councilor, black city councilor. He was had I think 5 or 6 votes to be the city.
I think he said he had the majority.
I don't know if at one point, there was a lot of talk that he would be the next city council president. And at the very last minute, and some people think that it was because of Mayor Wu's allies in the city council, maybe working at the behest of Mayor Wu, he lost by 1 vote, and he is not the city council president. And so, I think Mayor Wu's been on this show.
And she had nothing to do with it.
She had nothing to do with it. And but a lot of people are like, could that possibly be true? I mean, Liz Breeden, she didn't seem like she wanted to be city council president. And so she was also a very last minute, candidate. And so, anyways, so some people were telling me, he was upset over that. But when I talked to him, he's like, I'm not unhappy with Mayor Wu. It was time for me to leave.
He said he has a 98-year-old grandmother he cares deeply about and wants to be with her.
That's right.
And she raised him.
Raised by his grandparents, and he was away in college when his grandfather died, and so he's like, I didn't want that to happen here, and so he's staying till the end of February. A search begins for the new economic chief. I mean, he was the president of the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts. I think there was a lot of concern about him leaving at this moment when P3 is up in the air. The people in the black community are quite upset about black business and civic leaders and neighbors of Roxbury are upset about what happened there. And so
P3.
With P3. And so,
Why do you think he left?
I mean, I think, he also told me in interview that he had told Mayor Wu a year ago that he was planning to leave, and so he was also made a lot of headlines last spring because he was involved in a city hall scandal, and 2 workers were fired over it, and he got to keep his job, and your
position is, for those of us who thought that might have been the reason, if that was the reason, he would have quit when it was happening,
right?
Not 6 months
or quit after the election in November when a lot of other people left as well. So, I mean, he did stay the entire first term. Do I think he's a little unhappy about P3 and Brian Worwell? I do think he is, but he's going to be loyal to Mayor Wu. She stood by him during that city hall scandal. A lot of people probably would have let him go, pushed him out, but she stood by him. So he says, listen, he's put in his time with the first term with Mayor Wu, and he's looking for a job right now. So
can we do good news for the final few minutes here?
What's good news?
You and Mayor Wu got action, it seems to me.
Timeout Market.
Timeout Market is about to shut down.
It's exciting.
Wu gets involved and says this guy who's a big developer in the
Steve
Fenway,
Samuels.
I'm embarrassed to say I don't know of him, but apparently
he's
a big
very
deal.
media shy, so he would never come on the radio.
You said the same thing in your column, didn't you?
Yeah, so Timeout Market was slated to close
in the Fenway.
In the Fenway last Friday, January 23rd. It's supposed to close. The vendors there only got, I think, 10 days notice, and it was a real shock. It was, I think, the first food hall to open in Boston.
It's huge, but for people who haven't been there,
yes,
it's huge.
Yes, in 2019 it was the first one, and since then there's been one at High Street Place and now at TD Garden, Hub Hall. And so it was a real shock that this was closing, and my colleague Janelle Nanos broke the story, and I'm reading this story that Janelle wrote, and it just seemed to me the reason why it was closing, not because it was not popular, is closing because a disagreement between Timeout Market was getting out of the business of running food halls. They're a media company, and Alexandra Real Estate Equities, the owner of the building, they're like, we don't want to run food halls because Timeout Market has said, here, Alexandra, you run it, and they're like, we don't want to run it, and so this was closing, and it just seemed like it's not a very good reason for this 20 vendors, 20 small businesses to be out of luck here. And so I wrote a column about how I think Steve Samuels should step in. He's developed much of the new development in Fenway is through him. And he's been there for, I don't know, probably 10, 15, 20 years now. And at one time, he actually had owned that building before he sold it to Alexandria. So he was the one that originally brought in Timeout Market into that location. So I called out Sam, as Steve Samuels, like, you have to step in, you have a lot riding on. You have invested so much into making Fenway a place to live.
And Wu reached out to him too,
And Wu reached out to him too. And we did talk to Steve Samuels after it was announced that he was saving Timeout Market.
With 1 day to go.
With 1 day to go. And he said he was surprised. He said a lot of people reached out to him, whether it was Mayor Wu, whether it was me writing a column, people in the neighborhood. They were like, you have to do something here. And he's the one person who could do something.
Can you pass it, since we don't know Steve Samuels, and I love the fact that he's this big deal in the Fenway and keeps a low profile. He's apparently not an egomaniac, which is wonderful. Can you pass along a message for Marjorie? We believe, and Marjorie is the first one that said it here, one of the reasons this place failed was what?
Parking.
Nightmare. A total
and they charge you so
nightmare.
much, even if you're in there.
You have to walk from like Somerville practically. No,
deal. They need to cut a deal like $10 for parking or something. If you validate.
Well, is there a lot of parking around? Because I haven't been there in 6 months.
No, there's a lot of garages.
Well, there was this
there.
garage when there was construction there. You had to go around a circuitous route, and it was a long walk. That's changed?
No, I mean, it's right. It's 2 blocks from Fenway Park. I mean, there's tons of parking there. It's a matter of, I've read that in the comments, too.
Yeah.
People have said that parking was a problem
Well,
or
it was
expensive.
how much they charge. I haven't been there for a while, so I should shut up.
I loved it when I went.
I know when Bed Bath was there, you could get a validation from there, but if
That's
you went into
right.
REI, you couldn't. And
That's
so
right.
you're in
That's right.
REI for 10 minutes
All
picking
right, I'll
up
bring
some
it up with
socks,
Steve.
and then they charge you $8.
Tell Marjorie said fix the parking situation.
And there was always a long line to get out of the parking thing, so it was a nuisance.
All right, I'll bring that up.
Okay, there you go. We get action, Jim.
Marjorie
I thought you were going
has-
to say, tell them how much you love food, and would you like to come on and discuss
Well,
the
can I
food
tell you, the
offerings?
food, it's really, they have a great selection of restaurants and bars there.
Yes,
it's pretty
they do.
great.
It's a great place.
Shirley, we
Shirley
assume
Leung.
Wu was
Shirley
going to
Leung.
respond to you. No,
She
I'm kidding.
gets
We'll see.
action. Shirley calls, things happen.
Take care,
I love
Shirley
it. I
Leung.
love it. I love it. Okay,
to
we've
see
been
you, Shirley.
speaking with Get Action, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung, host of the Stay More podcast, which you should also listen to. It's a great podcast. Coming up after this quick break, GBH is launching its new radio show, The Curiosity Desk. It's going to start at 1 o'clock next week. We're going to check in with host Edgar B. Hurd III about what to expect for their first few shows. Again, it's debuting next week. I'm Marjorie Egan, Houston Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
George Saunders' new novel, Visual, takes place at the deathbed of an oil tycoon visited by a parade of spirits. Some want for him to atone, and some simply want to bring him comfort.
The book is kind of a contemplation about how do we actually help somebody.
I'm Scott Detrow. Saunders on why he keeps revisiting death on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Massachusetts Health Connector for Business. Premium value plans can help small business owners find and offer accessible employee health benefits. Learn more at mahealthconnector.org/business. And Direct Federal Credit Union, a Needham-based financial institution providing loans, saving solutions, and financial wellness resources for members across every stage of life. Learn more by visiting direct.com. Direct Federal, member NCUA.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy live from the library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Before we interview the guy who's going to be hosting the 1 and 2 o'clock hour starting next Monday, getting the same text we get every time I mention this. If you're so highly rated, why are they cutting your hours? They didn't cut our hours. We asked to do a 2-hour show, and management here was kind enough to say yes. And in the place of our 3rd hour, starting Monday, will be the Curiosity Desk with Edgar B. Herrick III, who happens to be joining us right now.
Edgar.
Hello, Edgar.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hello. So, what's going to happen next week? Tell us.
Well, I mean, as far as you two are concerned, you've got 1 hour less of work a day, as far, and you can do whatever you want. But
That's
on
right.
the radio, we've got, our brand new Curiosity Desk. Of course, we've been doing the Curiosity Desk in some form or fashion here at GBH for around a decade. We've done radio features, we've done live events, we've done our digital series, and now we're imagining it as a 1 hour show. So here we go.
So tell us about the first one. Please don't tell us you can't tell us. It's going to give me a headache. Give us some of the, you obviously know what your first week or a bulk of it's going to look like. What kinds of things are people going to hear there, Edgar B. Herrick?
Well, we're going to open things up on day one with somebody who GBH listeners might recognize from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And
I love
Great.
Morocco.
That's
we love
terrific.
Morocco.
I love him.
We're all big admirers of his work, and we have a lot of affinity with him. He's, kind of an interesting guy who covers a lot of things in a lot of ways. Fascinating dude. We had a great conversation. We talked about some of the things he's done that people know about, but also things he's done that they don't know about. For example, his star turn as Milton the Accountant on a couple of episodes of The Young and the Restless.
Wow.
And the fact that he started his career for a PBS show, which some people might remember, called Wishbone, about a dog who imagines himself in all of these like great works of literature. His first job in television was as a writer for Wishbone. So we talked a bunch, but I've got a clip from our conversation, which you'll hear on day one. This is a clip where I asked him a little bit about legacy. You know, he's so wide-ranging in what he does, and I wanted to know what kind of impact he wants his stories to have on the people who watch and hear them. Here's what he said.
One thing I do want to say that's something that has occurred to me in recent years is one of the reasons I like doing history pieces is I think when people have a little bit of a sense, well, in general, of what they're talking about, their arguments tend to be less nasty, less vituperative. I think the people that are having the nastiest, loudest arguments out there are the ones that don't know what the hell they're talking about.
I don't like him being critical of us, but that's okay. That's fine.
That's a good one.
Hey, Edgar, I'm embarrassed I don't know this. At some point during your shows, are you going to take calls or texts? Or
We are.
What are you doing?
So we've got a lot of ways for listeners to engage. One of the things we've done forever with the Curiosity Desk is encourage people to email us or check out the website and tell us what they're curious about, and we'll do stories around that. But yeah, we're going to take phone calls as well. For example, during week one, we're going to have the folks from Nova. We've got a segment about scientists who are teaching their dogs to talk.
Oh, I love
and
that.
so we'll have the phone lines open for that. And by the way, Jim, no word on how quickly they'll be able to host a show, but hopefully when you're ready to go down to 1 hour, whether that be for cost-cutting reasons or not, maybe dogs will be ready to host one of those hours. So we've got that. And I know you all have the MIT President Sally Kornbluth coming on, I think, next week.
We're very excited about having her. Yeah.
We're going to be talking with MIT scientists. Science is going to be a big thing. I don't know if you've ever met Pico Hassoy from their sports lab, but AI and skating, we're going to have a great segment about that. So lots of science, lots of history, and a lot of fun, we hope, on the radio.
We're really excited about it, I should say, Edgar.
Edgar
We really are.
III,
Congratulations.
there he is, host of GBH's new show, Curiosity Desk, which is going to premiere Monday, February 2nd, right after us.
Lead produced by our great friend and former colleague,
Aidan Conley.
Yep.
That's right.
Good luck, Edgar. We're really excited.
Thank you.
Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, going to talk with Sports Authority Trenni Casey on Patriots, the Super Bowl, the upcoming Winter Olympics, and how a few stitches to the crotch of ski jumpers' pants has made them, they say it's cheating, but it's helped them win the Olympics. What's that about? This is BPR and GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
For that next birthday, holiday, or special occasion, you can give a standout gift. A GBH membership. Thousands of hours of your favorite PBS shows, event deals, and local business discounts. Learn more at gbh.org/gift membership.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And the Museum of Science, featuring superpower dogs on the giant screen. The film journeys around the globe as audiences meet the special dogs who save lives and discover the powerful bond they share with their human partners. More at mos.org. And Concord Park, a Volunteers of America senior community in Concord, Mass., offering seniors the privacy and independence of their own apartment home, as well as care and support to help meet their needs now and as they age. ConcordPark.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead in hour 3 of BPR live from the library. We'll start the 1 o'clock hour with NBC Sports Boston's Trenni Casey on the Patriots' surprising Super Bowl berth. Plus, Trump won't be going because apparently he says California is too far away. Plus, the 2 hunky actors from Canada's gay hockey show are torchbearers at next month's Winter Olympics. Marjorie, of course, is forcing us to discuss and ogle.
I'm Marjorie, and then, since many of the little ones missed school yesterday, and some are missing today too, they've been cooped up with nothing to do but annoy their parents. We'll talk household chores. Your rite of passage in childhood, from taking out the trash, walking the dog, doing the laundry, shoveling the driveway, at least they used to be. How do you handle chores with your kids? And is there a changing expectation in 2026? Call or text us next on the snowed-in 1 o'clock hour at BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz's office says the governor met with President Trump's border czar Tom Homan this morning. Walz is requesting a smaller federal presence in Minnesota, and impartial investigations into immigration-related shootings in Minneapolis. Waltz says he and Homan agreed to keep talking. President Trump appointed his border czar to take over for Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino in the wake of 2 deadly shootings of U.S. citizens this month. A federal judge in Minnesota is ordering the acting head of Immigration and Customs Enforcement to personally appear in a Minneapolis courtroom this Friday. The judge says ICE has failed to comply with dozens of court orders. From Minnesota Public Radio, Matt Sepik reports.
2 weeks ago, Judge Patrick Schiltz ruled that Juan Hugo Tobe Robles, whom immigration authorities arrested, is not subject to mandatory prolonged detention. But Schiltz says ICE is not complying with his order to provide a bond hearing or release the man, or with dozens of similar orders. The judge ordered acting ICE Director Todd Lyons to appear in court personally on Friday to answer why he shouldn't be held in contempt. Schiltz was appointed by President George W. Bush and clerked for the late conservative U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia. In a Monday order, Schiltz writes, quote, "The court's patience is at an end." For NPR News, I'm Matt Sepik in Minneapolis.
U.S. population growth slowed sharply last year due to a steep drop in immigration. NPR's Scott Horsley reports on the latest figures from the Census Bureau.
The U.S. population grew by 1.8 million people during the 12 months ending last June. That's about half the growth rate of the previous year. The downshift reflects a historic drop in net migration as fewer people enter the country through legal channels and others are forcibly removed. Census forecasters say if current trends continue, immigration could fall by another million people in the current year. Meanwhile, the native-born population is growing slowly, with births outnumbering deaths by only about 500,000 during the year ending last June. That's less than half the natural increase in years before the pandemic. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Israeli officials have revealed more details of how the last Israeli hostage body was discovered Monday in Gaza. Here's NPR's Daniel Estrin.
Israel's domestic security agency says it captured an operative from the Islamic Jihad militant group last month in Gaza, who provided information pointing to a cemetery in Gaza City. An Israeli search team of more than 100 people went there Sunday and exhumed hundreds of Palestinian bodies until a dentist identified the hostage's body Monday through his dental records, a military official told Israeli radio. In exchange, in the coming days, Israel is expected to hand over 15 Palestinians' bodies to Gaza, according to the ceasefire agreement. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Several elected officials in Worcester have weighed in on the killing of Alex Preddy, the 37-year-old American citizen and intensive care nurse who was shot and killed by federal immigration agents during an enforcement operation in Minneapolis over the weekend. Worcester City Council Vice Chair Christian King issued a statement yesterday calling the killing a catastrophic failure of government and a searing indictment of a system that has lost its moral grounding. Worcester Mayor Joe Petty also addressed the killing in a statement. He describes Preddy's death as a moment that has deeply shaken communities across the country, including in Worcester. Also making a statement, U.S. Representative Jim McGovern, a Worcester Democrat who's calling for a transparent investigation of Preddy's murder. Fans will have to wait just a little bit longer before celebrating Hasty Pudding's 2026 Woman of the Year. The Crimson reports the annual ceremony, including the roast and parade through Harvard Square, was originally scheduled for this coming Friday, January 30th, but has been postponed due to the recent snowstorm and continuing icy cold temperatures. Spokesperson at Hasty Pudding Theatricals says a rescheduled date has not yet been announced, nor has the identity of this year's honoree. The 2026 Man of the Year ceremony is still scheduled for Friday, February 6th, with Oscar-nominated actor Michael Keaton set to receive that coveted Pudding Pot Award this year. In sports, Bruins host Nashville at the Garden. It's 21 degrees. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One, offering their premium travel card, Venture X. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And listeners like you who donate to this NPR station.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow at noon, we're going to be joined by the former ambassador to NATO. Nicholas Burns is here on Friday noon to 1. It's the Governor, Maura Healey, at the library. And Monday, our show, not because we're getting cut, but because we asked, is going to end an hour earlier every day so Jim could finally find Harriet Heidemann. Okay.
I guess if it makes you happy, I guess it's okay. But
Jim's going to start a search.
You are a really
Monday
sad
at 1:01 p.m.
We're joined now at the library desk.
Let no stone be left unturned.
Thank you, Marjorie. We'll be joined now at the library desk by Trenni Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston and a BPR contributor. Hey there, Trenni.
Hi, I thought it was so you could have lunch with Harriet Heidemann.
Maybe it is.
Yeah,
Maybe it
that's
is.
right. He's been trying to have lunch with her for ages. It just hasn't worked out.
Can't
Okay, so let's hear a little sound from inside the Patriots locker room after the AFC Championship win versus the Broncos.
Okay, listen to me. But you got to celebrate tonight. And then tomorrow, it's how are we going to win the next game? You understand me? How is this group going to find a way to win one more game?
That's the coach, Vrabel,
Wow.
by the way. speaking.
Vrabel tells them, stop the shouting, and in a nanosecond, they stop the shouting. Wow.
Yeah, he has control of that locker room.
I guess he
They have a
does.
ton of respect. I mean, listen, guys, this is one of, I don't know if it's the greatest turnaround in sports history or in football history, but it is one of them. I mean, this is a team that was 4-13 the last couple of years, and it's not as if they had a bunch of drafts in a row where they really hit on a ton of draft picks, and so they had a lot of young guys who are living up to expectations. I mean, really, you have Drake May and Christian Gonzalez as your two sort of blue chip premier players. And then you just have a new coach in Mike Vrabel, and they managed to fill in, some holes with some really good free agents, like on defense, like Milton Williams and Robert Spillane and Kyrus Tonga, Stephon Diggs, obviously on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know why Jim's laughing at me.
I can't read this on the air. I don't think. I have to decide whether I can. You keep talking.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can't wait to see it afterwards if you can't read it on air. So they've just built a team that has bought into what Mike Vrabel is selling. And they are winning. They are winning games on taking advantage of bad football. It's not that they're playing great football. Patriots fans don't like to hear this, but it has sort of all come up Patriots. They had the easiest schedule in the NFL during the regular season. And even during the regular season, games that were supposed to be more difficult were made easier by the fact that Joe Burrow didn't play at quarterback for Cincinnati. He was hurt. Lamar Jackson went out in the second half against the Ravens. He was hurt. In the postseason, every team they have faced has had some pretty significant injuries on offense, which has allowed the defense to set things up for the offense to not have to do much, because the offense, quite frankly, against three of the best defenses in the NFL, has struggled in the postseason, but they've done just enough. And that's what's amazing to me. Even when things aren't going their way, like Sunday, I never for a second thought the Patriots were going to lose that game. Never for a second. Because I knew that they would come up with a play when they absolutely had to, and they did.
Best part of that game is, if you're watching, I assume a lot of people were since they were locked in their house, is it's sunny at the start of the game and full-on blizzard by the second half. That was just
I love the guy
incredible.
out there with it looked like a leaf blower clearing out all
It was a leaf blower, like blowing the snow out so that they could see the yardage markers. There is one thing to keep an eye on, guys. This has sort of started developing over the last 24 hours. At first, it was just this kind of like Twitter doctor who said, Drake May hurt his shoulder, his right throwing shoulder, when he was sacked in the third quarter, and everybody kind of blew it off. But then there was like this video of how he weirdly interacted with his wife. And then there was video of him kind of like wincing in pain. And there was video of him holding the AFC trophy in his left hand. And then yesterday and today, when asked about Drake May's health, Mike Vrabel sort of talked around it. So keep an eye on that. We obviously don't know. They're saying everybody at this time of year is banged up, and we'll know when they need to tell us everybody's status for the game. I don't think there's any reason to believe Drake May is not going to play in the Super Bowl. He will. But at what level and capacity will he be able to play? We're going to be probably breaking down film like it's the Zapruder film the next 2 weeks over his right throwing shoulder.
This is all good news if you're a Patriots fan, and it's great local team, total turnaround. The really sad thing, which we can't ignore, which really was upsetting me, I called Marjorie at night, I was so upset. Donald Trump will not be able to go to the Super Bowl because
everybody wants him there.
It's too far away.
Especially in San Francisco.
And that is his explanation. He would go, but it's too far away. Apparently, California, which is where the Super Bowl is too far for the President of the United States to fly. Now, I naively
Davos,
thought it was
Switzerland is obviously much
closer. It's a lot closer.
That's right.
It's a lot closer.
It's closer, yeah, that's
now,
closer.
you don't cynically think it's because, I don't know, Bad Bunny is going to be performing at halftime, Green Day, both of whom have been fairly, you don't think it has anything
I don't know,
to do with that,
maybe Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who has been eviscerating Trump. Listen, he's a man-child. We all know that. He's a whiny little baby. When he doesn't get his way and he's mad about how something goes, he just doesn't, he decides he's going to throw a temper tantrum and make a stand by not going. I am surprised that he is not throwing a temper tantrum. He is actually saying, oh, it's too far for me to go. We know that that's not the truth. I mean, MAGA heads all over the place are exploding over the, it is Brandy Carlisle, not Belinda. Belinda was the go-go. Brandy, I think, is the solo artist. Brandy Carlisle is singing. She's LGBT. She's a lesbian. Is singing "God Bless America." Green Day is performing at the pregame show. They are very anti-Trump and have like their song "American Idiot." Is sort of a political song, and they've since sort of changed some lyrics to match the current time.
I saw them at Gillette. The only concert I've ever seen at Gillette years
Were they great?
Years ago.
They
Oh, no,
like
we saw the Rolling Stones. They were spectacular.
Well, you're going to be able to see them. And then you've got Bad Bunny, who, of course, is the largest selling artist on Spotify, 84 million streams, I think, last year. He is an American citizen. He's Puerto Rican, but he speaks in Spanish. All of his music is in Spanish. And so, which, guys, I have to say, it shocks me that the NFL has gone in this direction.
Me too.
Like, for the NFL to say, you know what, this is the year that we are going to, I don't know if they're sending him back. I'm so surprised, Marjorie. I am very, very
because Bad Bunny also would not play in the United States because of ICE is going to be outside my concerts, and I don't want that to happen.
That's a really good point. Why aren't they throwing Kid Rock in to throw a bone to Trump? That's a really good point.
I don't know, but I don't hate it, Jim.
Speaking of Trump and problems with major sporting events, it's only on the margins, but so far some officials are suggesting, including a second-tier German official, is saying the teams and the fans should boycott the World Cup in the United States because of Trump's action. And the former head of FIFA, this guy Blatter, he didn't say the team should boycott. He said the fans should boycott.
Well, the travel bans are a problem, I think, for lots of people.
This is not going to pick up. This is on the margins.
I mean, I don't know, Jim. Think about this for a second. We have seen, and I know these stories have died down, and these aren't sports stories; these are news stories. But in the summer and fall, I was repeatedly seeing headlines about tourism numbers in the United States, how they had dropped dramatically. Canadians are not coming to the United States at the rate that they were before. Europeans are choosing to vacation elsewhere. So I don't know if especially listen, I think teams boycotting the United States for the World Cup, that to me might be just on the margins. That might just be it. Apparently this German, sort of secondary head of German soccer is aligned with a very progressive team where their logo is very, very liberal and very progressive. I think it's like a skull and bones, which stands for, some sort of resistance in Germany. So I don't know if teams, I've seen some quiet things on the internet about Olympians boycotting the Olympics. I don't think we should be asking our athletes who have worked 4 years to do this to boycott things, but the fan one I could see happening. If you
think somebody who got a ticket to one of these games is not going to go?
Well, first of all, not a lot of Europeans are angry about the price to get in the door, so they haven't bought tickets already. I don't know that they've been buying up tickets quite yet. I'm not sure what that is, but if you are someone from Spain or Portugal, someone who does not look white, who does not look Scandinavian, are you worried about coming?
Yeah, but someone else will just buy the ticket. It isn't like the stands are going to be empty.
I guess maybe.
I'd love them to stand up and speak, but
I just feel like Europeans. I think we are, as Americans, we think the way Americans think. And maybe Americans will just buy up the tickets.
Look at what the British did over the high price of the soccer.
That's the thing. I just think
tickets. They went bananas, and the soccer owners back down.
Yeah, I don't want to say that Europeans are more principled. I think I read a really great article about why Europeans, particularly the French, are able to protest in ways that American citizens, that American citizens aren't. You guys read it as well. So I think there's those differences. I guess if I wouldn't be shocked if numbers are down in terms of, in terms of people coming from elsewhere.
That's possible.
And someone might buy a ticket, Jim, but maybe they don't travel. Like maybe a Canadian only goes to games in Canada. Maybe if you're Mexican, you only go to games that are held in Mexico. It's in three countries.
Yeah.
And maybe if you are one of those Americans who scoops up a ticket because the price has dropped on the secondary market, because someone from Europe or Africa or Asia or South America has sold their ticket, maybe you're that person, maybe you don't fly to that city to go to it. Maybe you're not spending tourism dollars in that area. Maybe you've been there before and you spend so much on the ticket that you're not going to there is a lot of tentacles, economic tentacles, to going to a World Cup game. And when you have people coming to your country, they're gonna spend on hotels, they're gonna spend in restaurants, they're gonna buy gear, which maybe an American who is maybe just going to a game now in their backyard might not do.
We're talking to Trenni Casey.
So the Minnesota Timberwolves were playing the Golden State Warriors on Saturday, which is the day that Alex Preddy was killed in Minneapolis. They postponed the game. They played it on Sunday. But both coaches and the big NBA star Steve Curry spoke out about Steph Curry.
Steve Kerr is the head coach.
Yes. Steve Kerr is the head coach, and Chris Finch is the other coach, and Steph Curry, I keep saying Steve, it's not Steve, Steph Curry, spoke out about what's going on in the streets. We have a little sound here from Chris Finch, who is the coach, as we said, of the Minnesota Timberwolves, responding to Preddy's killing in a press conference.
In less than 3 weeks, we've lost another beloved member of our community in the most unimaginable way. As an organization, we are heartbroken for what we are having to witness and endure and watch, and we just want to extend our thoughts, prayers, and concern for Mr. Preddy, family, all the loved ones, and everyone involved in such a unconscionable situation.
This isn't that unusual for the NBA, because the NBA has spoken out on things like Black Lives Matter, but it does join a chorus of people not usually involved, like influencers on sewing circles and fashion, who have spoken out.
Yeah, Jim and I were talking about this off air. I was saying that it's been a little disappointing for me, and this is more people I know and follow who have just completely ignored what's going on. Like, I'm not asking you to take a hard stance and, tell anyone who supports Trump or supports ICE to unfollow you and that you never want to speak to them again. But there's been more silence, I think, that I'm comfortable with, but there's also been more speaking up. And Jim and I were talking about how the NBA and quite frankly, women's sports are always at the forefront of the celebrities who take the charge on that. And I think it is in large part because the NBA is, it is a league of primarily black men. And they understand, I think, oppression and discrimination in a way that maybe, a Tom Brady or a Drake May, a upper middle class, white person does not understand and doesn't feel the need to speak out. I think it would speak volumes if some of these higher profile, if a Matt Stafford or a Sam Darnold or a Drake May, like one of these quarterbacks who are playing in the biggest games over the weekend, use their platform to say something. I think that would shock people. I agree. But listen, I love seeing that, Joe Mazzulla was asked about it yesterday. Jaylen Brown spoke out about it.
Charles Barkley spoke out.
Barkley spoke out about it. A lot of NBA players, again, are leading the charge on this, of using their very large platforms to say enough is enough. And I saw a video today from Pete Buttigieg saying, thank you for speaking out. It is having an impact. I mean, we are seeing some small changes happening in Minnesota. I think, the czar. I don't know what his
the border guy, the guy
like,
Bovino
is getting dumped. There are calls like you're seeing them kind of distance themselves from Kristi Noem, so you wonder what might happen there. I mean, this idea that staying silent and being quiet, and like, not that there's anything wrong with making a donation or talking quietly in your community. But if you have a voice and you have a following and you have a platform, you don't need to be negative about it. You can just post the facts of what is happening and talk about how this is a tipping point in the United States. And a lot of people, quite frankly, just aren't willing to do it. But it's been heartening to see how many people are and how many people are saying, I don't care if you don't
we left one name out of this. You mentioned the WNBA.
Brianna Stewart,
who has won 3 or 4 championships, held that Abolish ICE sign. It's a big deal.
That's why I was so surprised about Bad Bunny and Green Day and what's her name?
Carlisle.
Brandi Carlisle.
Yeah, because I think of the NFL as pretty hostile.
Yes.
I mean, we all know what happened to Colin Kaepernick when he took a knee in solidarity with protests in the Black Lives Matter moment. And the owners of the NFL, I mean, Robert Kraft's wife signed up to rename the Trump Center to the Kennedy Trump Center or Trump
She's
Kennedy
on the board.
Center.
She voted for
whatever it is. She's on the board, and he gave a lot of money to Trump, and a lot of these guys, I think are Trumpsters that own NFL teams.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd go so far as to call Robert Kraft a Trumpster, because a lot of these, listen, a lot of these owners, they give to both parties, right? Because they want to curry favor. They want things to go their way, whether it's with their businesses that allow them to buy teams or within the NFL. But I would love, if I had a chance to talk to Mr. Kraft, to Robert Kraft. I don't want to call him Mr. Kraft. He's the owner. But
I think it's fair to call Kraft a big Trump supporter. From his dinners at Mar-a-Lago, his contributions.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Robert Kraft, as someone who has a foundation dedicated to hate speech and stopping it and hate crimes against the Jewish community.
Wonderful point.
Why are you not speaking out on this?
I tell you something.
Is your $1 million to Trump worth what's happening in this country?
Late wife were alive.
Oh, Myra is rolling over in her grave.
Do you think this would be happening?
Absolutely
I don't think so.
Okay, we have to settle.
It's really disappointing. It really is disappointing. I don't know if anyone in that camp listens to the show, but it's really disappointing to not see him. Someone who takes out advertisements to talk about stopping hate. His coach
Which rich, powerful person has said a word? Tim Cook is at the premiere of Melania at the White House on the same night that Alex Preddy is murdered.
I know.
I mean, these guys.
Well, you know what's so wonderful? We've seen these guys' colors. The billionaires and multimillionaires of America have shown, for the most part, I mean, with exceptions, but a lot of them, the big law firms, have shown very little courage. And the average Americans that have been taken to the street, risking, sub-zero temperatures all over this nation. I mean, it's the people of America who stood up. And Tim Cook, I mean, now we've got to boycott, I guess, our computers and our phones and everything else, which we're not going to do. But what is wrong with Tim Cook, who is got so much money, and Apple's got so much money, he's going to suck up to this guy and watch the Melania film?
I know.
On the same day that Alex Preddy was gunned down.
By the way, the other thing Kraft did that we talked a lot about on the show is he brokered the meeting between the firm Paul Weiss and Trump.
That's right.
That led to one of the first capitulations
and you know
of
what?
law firms.
Last week, I don't mean to get so off topic, but last week when Jack Smith, of course, who led the prosecutions into Trump involving January 6th and taking documents from Mar-a-Lago, people had to commend his law firm that had the courage to represent Jack Smith, because Trump is going after a lot of these law firms, and they've capitulated.
Okay, we got to move. Marjorie and I had a big fight this morning. We usually don't mention this on the air. And you're going to settle it.
What was it about?
I'm going to tell you what it was about. I said that I wanted to put extra material in the crotch of my pants so that I could perform better on the radio. And Marjorie said she thought that was totally unfair and that it probably wouldn't affect the quality of my performance anyway. Which side are you on?
I'm on the side of, I mean, it would affect your performance, at least according to the Norwegian ski jumping.
Please explain. Maybe
Federation.
she'll understand
this is a
it.
great
So
story.
this is like a scandal leading into the Olympics, as we do like a hard left turn here to something a little more, I guess it's kind of fun. So the Norwegian ski team, coaches and heads of equipment.
Yeah, you're right.
Have been suspended or banned. I think they suspended 3 years.
I'm not sure, yeah.
From ski jumping because they were adding a couple of extra stitches, which means a little bit more material in the crotch. You know, when you watch ski jumpers, they're wearing those really tight
Yep.
suits. Because a little bit of extra material will catch air. It can get you, what did it say, like
5 to 6 meters, 20
to 30
feet.
feet more through the air if you have just a little bit more material.
In your crotch.
So your crotch
and they
propels you through the air.
And so, no, they don't put it. The reason they don't put it, say, in the legs or the hips or the arms is it would be more obvious. So you put it in the crotch. And it's underneath. It's between your legs. You might not be able to see, but now they've taken to like inspecting these uniforms. And so so the athletes were deemed. Like not understanding what was happening. They didn't know what was going on. Ignorant to the situation, which I don't buy. The athletes never ignorant to the situation.
That's right.
Like in Deflategate.
They'd notice those stitches.
But they would like. I think. Like, listen, I'm sure that they have an idea of what. Maybe they don't. But anyway, they didn't punish the athletes. So now these athletes are going to go perform with the Olympics, and we're going to see how they do with just regular stitching.
Okay, let me just say, every text we're getting says this is one of the best shows I've ever done. And I attribute it totally to the 4 extra stitches. That's all I can say.
4 extra stitches. Okay.
Jamie put them in.
They give you more flight.
That was nice. No, it was really kind of you. It wasn't normal.
I was wondering what you were doing in there for so long, and the producers.
He's a very slow sewer.
I know. With a singer sewing machine.
Exactly.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Okay. We should say before you go, since we mentioned the Olympics and the crotches of the Norwegian skiers, what are you doing at the Olympics for those who don't know?
Yeah, I leave. Well, I'm supposed to leave Sunday, but I don't know. I may have to leave on Saturday now because of the weather. I will be headed down to Stamford, Connecticut to host on CNBC for the mothership for Big NBC. I'll be hosting the Olympics Monday through Friday. You can catch me from 5 to 8 p.m. after the markets close on CNBC. We'll have a curling show. So we'll have the best USA matches from the day, analysis. We'll have post-match interviews and things in case you missed it during the day while you're at work. And then on the weekends, I will also be on CNBC. We're on the air, I think, most days from like 1 to 8 or 1 to 11 at night. And we'll have some live events. We'll have some live curling, live hockey, and then also replays of things throughout the day if you miss it because you're out and about.
Now, before you go, I must point out one very important thing. We all know about the show Heated Rivalry, the love affair between these two very handsome hockey players. And one of them played for Montreal. They made up a name. One of them played for Boston. Well, apparently, according to StubHub, there has been a massive surge in interest for Saturday night's game between the Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins.
So I was at that game.
Yep.
On Saturday night. So it was this past Saturday night. This past Saturday night. I will say there were a decent amount of Montreal fans in the stands, and I don't know if it was just, because they love their Montreal Canadiens, or if they were hoping, or if they just want to.
And the guys carried the Olympic torch, too.
And
the
these
two
guys,
stars. I mean, it's
like
amazing.
I said, the heads of MAGA are exploding across the nation. The 2 stars of Heated Rivalry carried the torch as they get closer and closer to Milan to light the torches in Milan Cortina. So this has taken on a life of its own. My hope is to watch it while I'm at.
Okay, do you want to hear why we're laughing before you go?
Yeah, I do.
So Marjorie and I mentioned at the beginning of the segment that starting Monday our show will be 2 hours. And we've gone out of our way to say we were the ones that asked to go to 2 hours, and management was kind enough to give it to us. Well, some of our listeners don't agree. They don't believe us. Here are 3 texts from anonymous texters. Yeah. 1, with the extra hour, Jim will leave no shot put unturned. Thank you.
Harriet Heineman.
Here it is. Anonymous texter number 2. I think Marjorie should join Edgar, at least for the first week, to help wean us off. I'm fully supportive of Jim leaving immediately to live his life to the fullest, but Marjorie should stay the 3 hours, at least the first week. And finally, anonymous texter 3, he or she quote GBH management saying the following, quote, "You're not going to believe this. I'm sitting in my office fearfully trying to figure out how to tell Jim about the show being cut, and he walks in and asks for it to be cut, and all the managers did high fives." So there you go. Obviously, our listeners aren't believing us, but it's true.
Okay.
Trenni, it's good to see you.
Good to see you guys. I'll see you guys in March.
Good luck in Hartford. Wow.
Stanford.
Wherever the hell
I'll see you on
Connecticut.
Zoom.
We'll be watching.
Stanford's a great town.
Trenni Casey.
We have been speaking with Trenni Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston and a BPR contributor. Thank you so much, Trenni, and thank you so much for filling us in on the Norwegian ski team. We really love that. After this quick break, should children have a strict chore schedule and build responsibility in the house, or is the pressure of school and part-time work enough to warrant a laxer home environment? Do your parenting rules go out the window when you need help digging out 2 feet of snow. In other words, were you out there shoveling like crazy these last couple of days while your teens were snug inside playing video games and scrolling TikTok? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy, listening to BPR 89.7 live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
George Saunders' new novel, Vigil, takes place at the deathbed of an oil tycoon visited by a parade of spirits. Some want for him to atone, and some simply want to bring him comfort.
The book is kind of a contemplation about how do we actually help somebody.
I'm Scott Detrow. Saunders on why he keeps revisiting death on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org.
And McLean Middleton. For over 100 years, McLean Middleton has been dedicated to serving its clients and its community, offering guidance through the complexities of today's legal system. With locations in Woburn and Boston, McLean.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow at noon, the former ambassador to NATO and China, Nicholas Burns, will join us here at the library. On Friday at noon, the governor will join us, Maura Healey, for an hour of Ask the Governor, your questions and ours, noon to 1 on Friday. Before we get into the topic at hand, attempting to give you a break from pain and everything else that's going on, one last update. Trump is about to get on a helicopter. It shows, I think, about how Trump is being forced to respond, at least rhetorically, to national outrage over this, what we believe to be the murder of Alex Preddy. He was asked, this is about to get on the helicopter, do you believe, this is an hour ago or so, do you believe that Alex Preddy's death was justified? Trump, we're doing a big investigation. I want to see the investigation. I'm going to be watching over it. I want a very honorable and honest investigation. I mean, I have no reason to believe it's true, but it shows that they can't say wannabe assassin anymore like Stephen Miller or domestic terrorist. Trump on Preddy himself. I'm looking at the whole situation. I love everybody. I love all of our people. I love his family. It's a very sad situation, but it couldn't miss an opportunity. With that being said, he closes, you can't have guns. You can't walk in with guns, even though every single Trump supporter who's ever gone into a situation like that, who is armed, was defended to the hilt by the Trump people. So just wanted to give you an update.
I haven't heard that he's going to allow local officials to get involved.
No, nor have I.
And who's going to believe any investigation done by Kristi Noem and Homeland Security at this point? But anyway, let's move on.
Okay, as if Sunday night's snowstorm wasn't enough, we got an additional few inches last night. There may be another storm this weekend, a nor'easter. The Boston Public Schools and other districts across the region canceled classes again today. So we're going to open the lines this afternoon and get your thoughts on putting those do-nothing video game playing couch potato kids to work around the house. Do you give them a shovel and a section of the driveway to clear out on snow days? Do you let them run wild and free in the backyard and do absolutely nothing? We were originally going to have this conversation a couple of weeks ago when one man posted about his childhood chore routine online. He was 8 at the time. He's 34 now. It sparked a debate about how many and the nature of the chores we should be giving our kids at home. Wipe down the living room furniture one day, clean the kitchen the next, make your bed every day, then the bathroom, the basement, etc. Take the trash out, that kind of deal. So we wanted to check in on your own chore schedule for your kids, or even reflect on your own childhood chores. Did you gain an allowance from them? Did your parents just put you to work unpaid? Do you have a strict chore routine as a kid and decided to parent your own kids with a little more leeway? Do you take the attitude that so many parents do? It's easier and faster if I do it myself. 877-301-8970 to give us a call or a text. So I don't even know, what kind of chore mandating mother are you? Your kids are too old.
Wasn't nearly as good as I should have been. I was easier to do it myself, so I often did it and sent my oldest kid off to go dancing in the living room with the other kids while I cleaned the kitchen.
Because it took
cooked
more
dinner.
time and
because it was faster to do it myself. But I think it was a mistake. I think it was a big mistake. I mean, what these stories all say is that as children, especially if you start young, they want to contribute. It gives them a sense that they are contributing to the family. You know, even though they're ineffective, like they're sweeping the floor and they're getting more crumbs on the floor than they are in the basket, or they're spilling, the pancake batter or whatever, that it's a good thing to do, and that all of us should have done it. When I have a really good friend who's a great gardener, and I said, how'd you learn that? And she said, because my father made us help him with the garden every Saturday before we went out to play. So I think you learn great skills like gardening or cooking or sewing or those kinds of things from your parents. And if you learn them when you're young, you learn them for life.
It's not just that you learn a skill. The converse, that's probably the wrong word, is also true. Somebody wrote a piece that we read this morning, I forget who it was. It said they have a person come in who cleans the house.
Yeah.
And they don't ask the kid to clean the house. And so the message this parent thinks they're sending the kid, which I totally believe to be true, is you have no responsibility for your own mess. That person is going to come in and clean up after you, which is not the best lesson to teach a kid later in life. Now, I was going to say I didn't do a wonderful job, maybe in terms of requiring that our kids contribute. But who dug a hole in the 3-foot snow for me?
Your
so
daughter.
I didn't do a face plant this morning.
You told me, your
when
daughter.
I got in the lift.
That's very impressive.
My daughter, now admittedly she's 31 now, but I assume that was in some small part. And she was worried I'd be in the ER if I did it myself. But nevertheless, maybe she learned a lesson or two.
That's a great example, because a lot of people, their kids were not out shoveling. They were hiring people to shovel, or like mom and dad who are 40 or 50 or 60 are out there huffing and puffing, and the kids are in the house. So who did the shoveling around your house this time? And do you think we're too easy on these little layabouts that sit around your house? 877-301-8970 is the number if you want.
Did you do chores when you were a kid?
Yeah.
I was asked to do absolutely nothing.
Oh, no, I did
nothing.
things.
What'd you do?
Clean the kitchen, did
Obviously,
the dishes.
Cooking was not part of it.
No,
Thank you very much.
Cooking was not part of it, but cleaning up was part of it. Yeah, that kind of stuff, and make sure the bathroom was clean. What was a breakthrough for me? I told you my first job when I was 15, I was a chambermaid, and that made me really good at things like making beds and cleaning bathrooms and stuff like that. And I think that's why I didn't do a lot of it with my own children. But it was wrong. It was a mistake.
That's a whole different thing, though. You're paid. That was your job.
Yeah, no, I know, but it made me good at it, so it was faster for me to do it myself. Clean the bathroom really quickly. Change the bed really quickly. They talk about in these stories that a lot of us, and that was true of me, did not have the patience to sit there with the kid.
This takes a lot more time.
Yeah, it takes a lot more time. It takes you 4 hours to make dinner instead of a half an hour. Anyway, 877-301-8970. What?
Jamie asked an interesting question.
Yeah.
When I said I didn't do anything, he says, you didn't have to go get your own Hebrew National salami sandwich? The answer is no. It was delivered to me in bed. Every night, right before I went to sleep.
That's right.
With an extra slice of salami by my mother. Why would I have to go get it, obviously?
Here's a mom from West Roxbury. I have 3 kids under 12. My go-to when I hear, I'm bored, is to say, great, time to clean the baseboards. And I hand them a cloth and a spray. Otherwise, we assign chores unloading the dishwasher, folding the laundry on an ad hoc basis. No, they do not get paid. Everyone contributes when needed, not because of money incentives. So there you go.
That.
She's doing it the right way out there in West Roxbury.
That is the right way. 877-301-8970. Lee in Westboro, you're first. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Oh, hi. Thanks. Frequent caller. I love you folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm probably a little unique because I happen to grow up on a farm here in Westboro, even though it wasn't a working farm for making money. It was a family subsistence farm. Mm-hmm. So as the oldest daughter, I learned, my father decided to treat me like a boy because he only had 3 girls. So he taught me how to do everything. Chop wood, drive the tractor, install, paint windows, sash, repair windows, everything, even drive a bulldozer.
Did you complain when you were a kid? I'm sure you love it now. Did you complain then?
I did. I wanted to say, Daddy, you can't make me into a boy. But one day when he had a bulldozer here, a Cat 13 or something, it was a lecture over the weekend, and he asked me if I wanted to drive it, and I thought, no. If I go to school the next day, all the boys are going to laugh at me because I was driving a bulldozer. And then I watched him for 20 minutes, and I couldn't stand it. I had to go drive the bulldozer, too. So I think it prepared me to be a good volunteer, scouts, school, different things.
That's great.
And it'll taught you all those skills. I mean, you never know when you might need to drive a bulldozer again, Lee. Thank you very much for the call. Listen to this anonymous texter. What the heck is the point of having kids if you can't use them for free child labor? I call BS on that. Get your butt out there and get to work.
Well, the best example, I ask every time I mention one of my favorite shows ever, what's the Japanese show where the little kids at 2 years old get sent out with the flag? To the grocery store like 3 miles away. What's it called?
I don't know.
One of our colleagues.
But they have the flag because they're so little. The idea is no one is going to run them over. So they're walking down to buy a quart of milk. They're lugging back. It basically breaks their back because they're so little. But they were like 3 years old with a little flag. I mean, that was incredible.
How about paid? That person who said, of course, unpaid. I think I'm there too. I mean, your obligation when you live in the house is to help have the house get taken care of, right? Isn't it?
And this really good piece I read about this in the Atlantic said that it gives kids a sense of purpose, and you need to start when the kids are young. Like I have a little granddaughter now, and she was so cute. She out there with a little shovel.
She was doing
snow? She out there with a shovel. She was shoveling the snow.
She
was doing a terrible job, but she was shoveling the snow, and she was into it, and it was really cute to kind of watch it. But this same Atlantic story says that chores accounted for less than 3% of household activities for children between the ages of 5 and 17. Guess who's doing most of the household work?
Mom.
Yeah, 27% for mom and 15% for dad. This is why they had that great book. This is an old book now, but Arlie Hochschild wrote that book, The Second Shift, talking about women getting screwed because, of course, they go to work at the office 8 hours a day, then they come home and have to work another 8 hours a day cleaning the house while their husband is drinking beer and watching the Patriots.
So I mentioned you shouldn't pay him. June in Rockport has a different story. This is pretty good. My father put nickels in piles of leaves that he raked. Our job was to put the leaves in barrels. Those nickels motivated us. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
That's very good. That's very good. Let's go to Gina in Brewster. Hi, Gina.
Hello, Gina.
Well, hi, Jim and Marjorie.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi. Welcome.
I had I got triggered by a comment about all this stuff about snow shoveling.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm originally from Kentucky. So when I moved up here 40 years ago, I thought snow was like, wow, super fun. And my kids were little at the time, and I basically loved going out and shoveling snow so much I would like force them to stay in the house. And
how old were you? How old?
40 years. This is 40 years ago when she did this. A long time ago.
40 years ago. My kids were little. They wanted to be out helping, and I said, stay in the house. I'm doing the shoveling. So I always did all the shoveling because I thought that was really fun. Because, I didn't grow up with snow. And anyway, I can see now that it was probably a bad idea that I did that.
Yeah.
Hey, Gina, thank you for I wasn't shoveling snow when I was a kid. Were you shoveling snow when you were a kid?
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah, I was shoveling
wow.
snow. Well, we used to have a lot of snow all the time, and you'd be out there. And it's kind of fun. I mean, I don't like shoveling snow particularly, but it's a kind of a neighborhood thing. Everybody's out there. In every neighborhood, there's a certain family where it's usually the father. The moment it starts snowing, he's out there with his shovel. He's the guy that's got the steps all cleaned and the driveway all clean. They're kind of snow fanatics. And then there are the other scufflaws that wait till everybody's slipping and sliding in front of their house before they ask to get out there and slide. But it becomes a neighborhood thing, I think. Kim from Hingham. What do you think,
Hello,
Kim?
Kim.
Hello.
Hi.
The first chore that I had my kids learn was how to set the table. And that was their first chore that they had to do as young children.
That's a good one.
And when they went to a family reunion with all their cousins, there were about 12 cousins, they were the only cousins that knew how to properly set a table.
Were they proud of themselves?
Yes.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good one. And kids can do that at a very early age. You just put the fork on one side, the knife on the other side, turn the knife inside, so it's, facing the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim, thank you for that.
That was the first chore. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What are you looking at?
I was looking at Kim's name.
Oh, okay.
On the
I thought
thing
you were
here.
looking at me for something.
No, it's not.
I'd done wrong.
No, you done. By the way, what I'm looking at, there was a person who said, I hate to ruin this and bring everything back to Trump, but remember when Stephen Miller said let the janitor pick up things? I'm just reading. I'm not going to do the whole thing. Don't get nervous. This is a letter to the editor of Santa Monica High School by Stephen Miller when he was 16, trashing his Hispanic classmates and saying the janitors should be picking up the trash in the school. This is a 16-year-old kid.
And why are
not
we surprised?
him.
There's something obviously very wrong with him. There's
I
something
think so.
obviously very wrong with Kristi Noem. I mean, why are we surprised that these people do these cruel things? I mean, she shot her damn dog. I mean, for goodness sake, a puppy. Cricket, that was the dog's name.
You looked it up today.
I did. Well, I was so upset by it. Okay, I'll admit, says the texter, I shoveled 3-foot plow trap at the end of my driveway today, and I really wished I had kids.
Okay, so is this poll real? Did someone put this up on YouTube, Jamie? Is this, yeah? Okay. Well, our colleagues put a poll up directed at us, of course. Should radio hosts clean their studio as a chore? 54% say yes, please. 41% actually think the studio is perfect.
Yeah, okay.
Studio is not perfect.
It's not perfect.
And Marjorie is the problem.
I'm not the problem.
Right now.
The difference is I'm happy if somebody wants to come in and clean out the studio. Jim won't let anybody touch his things.
My stuff.
And his things are like this ratty bookshelf.
What do you
with
care?
These ratty books. I mean, who cares about the ratty bookshelf and the ratty?
Do you like people touching your stuff?
If it was a ratty bookshelf full of ratty books, I would not care, Jim.
I wouldn't say they're all ratty, Marjorie. I wouldn't. Let's go to Marie.
They've been there since like 2014.
Yeah, they're actually collector's items.
You're going to read them
are.
soon.
I am going to read them soon.
Marie from Boston. What do you think, Marie?
Jamie, before you go ahead, Marie, Jamie just made a very good point about my stuff. Jamie said, if Marjorie knew where her stuff was,
that's true.
That would be exactly.
I do lose everything, but I try to have a sparse approach to the office. I have a lot of forks.
You do.
And pens.
Not enough.
Not
Marie
enough.
in Bolton, hi. Sorry to interrupt you. Take it away.
Hi. Totally fine. Yeah, so we grew up helping my parents with all sorts of chores, including, raking the woods. That was a big one.
The woods?
Cutting the grass. Yeah, we had pine trees, and Dad wanted them just so. So we did everything, and when it was a particularly heinous chore, we'd get $1 a day. So both my husband and I grew up working, and the kids grew up the same way. And I have to be honest, my middle kid made me proud. He would do dance when he was almost an adult and moved out. And he'd go through the house listening to wild music and taking care of everything. Unfortunately, all of the excess ended up in the garage. But that's for us.
Marie, what did it do for you as an adult that you'd done all these things as a kid, do you think?
Absolutely learning how to take care of a home, how to take care of the woods, how to cooperate, and then really how to raise your kids to have that attitude of wanting to help and be part of the family.
Right.
Instead of parasites. So.
Instead of parasites.
That's pretty
right.
good, Marie. Thanks for the call.
Listen to this one. I'm a housekeeper, and most of my clients' children need to pick up their rooms before I get to clean their room because I'm not supposed to pick up after them. But the housekeeper says my own children had chores like making the beds, doing the laundry, dishes, which they hated to do now. But now that they are in college, my kids are the ones who tell me their roommates are slobs. So that's an interesting thing. The parents don't want the housekeeper to clean their kids' rooms.
I like that.
Because they're such a mess.
Anonymous texter, I hope Edgar and his team will be in a different studio. Poor souls.
Well, that's why they're cleaning the studio. They're cleaning it because they need to fumigate it, they feel as though, before Edgar moves in there.
Now, we start the day with hundreds of pages each of us at prep. Is that correct?
Yes.
Where do mine go when I'm done with them?
In the basket.
And where do yours go when you're done with them? That is not, Marjorie, it's here. Where do they go at the studio back in Brighton, please?
It's in the basket.
No, that's not
in the recycle bin.
That is so untrue.
I put them in the floor, and then I relocate them to the recycle.
You covered the floor with them. What?
I pick them up, and I put them in the recycle bin.
By the way, this is another scandalous comment by Jamie. He says the reason they go, where the place they go is on the wall with your coffee one time. One time. I was pouring out the remains of coffee in the studio in Brighton. And instead of throwing it in the garbage, I did not throw it at the wall. Part of it. It was a bad day. It was a bad day.
You did. We've got coffee stands all over the place. They smell really good, too,
They
let me
do.
tell
I
you,
think
especially when you
that's
have milk
actually
in
a
the coffee.
nice
Barry from Framingham, thank you for
Talk
calling.
about chores for kids, Barry. Hi there.
They have to
Hi, how are you?
replace the walls before Edgar gets
It's not funny.
That's what's
No
going
one's
on.
laughing at
They're
this.
replacing the walls.
We heard that. Nobody's laughing at it. Go ahead. Barry, what's up?
So you were talking about snow shoveling.
Yes.
We would shovel our driveway, and then after we finished that, me and one of my friends, we went out and tried to get neighbors to pay us to shovel their driveways. And sometimes it worked. We didn't know how to charge for our services, though, so we would tell people when they asked, whatever you think it's worth. Some people paid us $1 or $2 to shovel their driveway, and some people paid us like $0.25. And, of course, that was over 60 years ago, so 25 cents an hour wasn't that bad for a 10-year-old.
Let me ask you a question, Barry. If the people that tell the truth, the people that gave you just 25 cents, did you leave like nails on the driveway? What'd you do?
You know, I still remember this one. I remember the woman that gave us $0.25 each to do this driveway that must have been 150 feet long.
Oh, my God.
And we killed ourselves doing this driveway. And like I said, it's over 60 years ago, and I still remember. I can pick out the house.
I love people with long memories, Barry. Thank you for the call.
Here
By the way,
is an honest woman.
Go ahead.
Lori from the car. I never asked my kids to do many chores. And when my son received his first cell phone, he called our landline from his bedroom. I answered, not knowing where the call was coming from. It was my son calling me from his bedroom, asking if I could bring up some milk and a snack.
I like that.
And I did.
I like his style. So whenever our coworkers say they have sound, it makes me nervous.
Okay.
They allegedly have sound from the one time I spilled coffee.
The one time.
And it got on the wall in the studio.
That's why they're replacing the walls.
They're not Here they're replacing the walls. Here is allegedly the sound of me spilling the coffee. Go ahead. No. You know what that is, Marjorie?
What?
It's not me spilling the coffee. It's the people. It's the people. Those two women. Remember the news thing?
Who got
they
hurt.
were crushing the grapes in the barrel.
They got hurt.
And the
what
ones
happened is
spilled out of the thing.
Edgar said he really couldn't take the stench. And
There's no stench.
That was the issue.
There's really no stench.
And poor
there's
Edgar.
a smidgen of coffee on the wall. And there's like 2 inches of Marjorie's papers.
Okay.
Which I had to clean up, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I vacuum. By the way, every time she leaves, she won't say this. She asks me not to. Every time she leaves, I stay and vacuum her area before I go home.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'm there for 30 to 40 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes.
Picking up
what an
after
outrage.
Marjorie.
Josh from Waltham. What do you think, Josh?
Hello, Josh.
Hello, Jim and Marjorie. First of all, I want to say congratulations on the 2 hours.
Thank you.
And congrats to Edgar and Aiden as well.
Yes.
Thank you. That's very nice.
Thank you, Josh.
You're most welcome. You deserve it.
Yeah, we do. It's
well,
true.
speaking of chores, my core memory of a chore as a kid was my brothers and I would have to help out my dad's work. He was a environmental laboratory manager, and we would have to put these like 3x5 labels on bottles, and it was I mean I was terrible at it. The labels were always crooked. I did not enjoy it. Nowadays, I would be thrilled to have a job like that. So I don't know. I guess it shaped my character somehow. And I take care of the chore of listening to you guys every day. So, you know.
That's a good one.
Josh, that's a good one. Thank you.
We're actually big
Thank
fans
you very
of
much
Josh,
for calling.
despite that, actually.
Jared, we're going to
Josh.
speak with Jared in just a minute.
I know we are.
And we tried to get Jared to take our studio and have Jared at the but Jared was smart enough to say, no way, Jose, is he going to move into our studio? And part of the reason we can understand why Jared was upset. Did you see the note we just got from one of the facilities managers guys at the station?
No.
Just a heads up, the cleaning crew is planning to deep clean Studio 3, that's our studio, Wednesday evening, so that Edgar can come in there and have it fresh and not,
And by the way, we don't mind. Let's be clear in case people are thinking this. We've been in that studio about 45 years. We've never cleaned it once. The fact that Edgar's coming and they're cleaning it doesn't bother us in the slightest.
Now, Jared.
Totally fine. Hi, Jared.
Did the smell of Studio 3, is that part of the reason why you refused to move there?
Tell the truth. It's fine.
So that Edgar
Wait.
could be in your lovely studio.
I can't hear. I don't think my headphones are working. Maybe we just need a second to reset here. I can't hear what you're saying.
Okay.
That's so weird.
Jared, didn't you grow up on a farm or something like that?
Yeah,
yeah. So did you do like milking cows and all that kind of
mucking the
stuff?
stalls?
What were you doing when you were a kid?
When my parents went off to work, I had to rebuild the carburetor on the John Deere, and I had to erect a new shelter for the animal, a new hayloft.
In other words, nothing.
I had to do all of that.
Yeah, we're very impressed, Jared. Very impressed.
Yeah.
Okay, Jared is staying in
I had to get the oxen out to plow the driveway.
He will be in his pristine studio down the hall, and Edgar will be in
Ours
the
is
newly
going to be deep cleaned. It's
cleaned,
fine.
fumigated Studio 3.
Look at the plant behind me. That could never grow in your studio. If you put it in there, it would just disintegrate in seconds.
Okay. Not to mention when Jim puts his salmon in the microwave oven and leaves that fish
By the way,
smell
can
in
I
there
say
for
that
days
the only
and days.
time I put
You come
fish in the
it's like
microwave
the smell knocks you
is
out.
on the days I thought you were going to be late.
Okay.
And sometimes you're not late.
Lingers for
And
hours.
the smell lingers.
Fish in the microwave. Imagine how that smells. Anyway, Jared, we should shut up. What's
And by
on
the
your
way,
show?
all the mold was eliminated from the studio weeks ago. So it's not even, we're not even leaving it to the deep cleaning crew.
My studio is 3 studios down just to prevent us from the mold creep. I mean, you talk to it when you walk in the hallway.
Okay, fine. What's on your show this afternoon?
It talks back.
Okay.
People have to walk quickly
Talks
past our
back.
studio on the tours.
Okay, Marjorie, enough. What's he doing? What are you doing there?
So we're going to be talking about Black History Month. This is actually the 100th anniversary of the effort that ultimately became Black History Month. We'll talk to Noel Trent, President and CEO of the Museum of African American History. I'm trying to talk fast so the mold doesn't get me. Then bass baritone Devon Tynes is here. He has a new project with Ruckus. It's called What's in Your Hand? What is your hand in this? Looking at revolutionary music all the way to today. And then a new book all about the invention of the future when it comes to cities.
By the way, just
That
so that
sounds
people don't
fantastic,
think ill
Jared.
of us, when Edgar was given this new show, he was given, which I thought was really nice, a Jim and Marjorie hazmat suit, which and we dedicated them. It was our idea, and it was our gift. No, we didn't ask to be reimbursed. We paid for ourselves, and he'll be wearing it starting Monday if he knows what's good for him. Okay, we'll be listening, Jared. See you around.
See ya.
Thank you, Jared.
It's not that bad.
Okay. Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio, and to people that came down despite this lousy weather to the Boston Public Library. Keep up with this
more if you can
24/7
come tomorrow.
by way of our
We're done.
podcast, or
Come back.
check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow we'll be back here with the Culture Show's Jared Bowen, former ambassador to NATO, Nick Burns, and he knows all about China, the United States, and everything else. Embrace Boston's Amari Parrish Jeffries and Reverend Jeffrey Brown. They're going to talk about this whole dust-up between Michelle Wu and the mayor, and the great
She is
love.
the mayor.
Oh, whoops, between Shirley Leung and the mayor. Sorry, Jim.
And them, to a degree.
That's right. And Love Letters columnist Meredith Goldstein. Our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer John the Claw Parker, our executive producer Jane Bologna. Special thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Juan Jose Cadena, our host at the Newsfeed Cafe, and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Jared and the Culture Show is...
Whoa, and a lot of you know Senator Nick Collins, who was one of the obstacles to Mayor Wu's legislation, was supposed to join us tomorrow. He has to be here, and then he canceled. Not us. I'm Jim Browdy.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great afternoon.
Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Bonsai Bar, hosting pop-up beginner bonsai workshops at breweries across New England. Hands-on classes provide guidance in the basics of bonsai design and care in a group setting. More at bonsaibar.com. Henry Louis Gates Jr. introduces actor Lizzie Kaplan and comedian Hassan Minhaj to ancestors whose brave decisions forever reshaped their families. Watch Finding Your Roots tonight at 8 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Black History. A century ago, historian Carter G. Woodson launched a radical idea that Black history belongs at the center of the American story, not in the margins. As Black History commemorations mark their 100th anniversary, we look at how the project that became Black History Month began. Noel Trent, president and CEO of the Museum of African American History, joins us to preview the institution's month of programming and to talk about why the fight over history itself feels newly urgent in 2026. Then history through music. Bass baritone Devon Tynes is bringing his genre-bending, history-minded artistry to Boston with rocking early music ensemble Ruckus. In What Is Your Hand in This?, they revive Revolutionary-era hymns and ballads, and then move through the centuries of American music in a concert that treats the past as something alive, resonant, and unfinished. And Harvard professor Bruno Carvalho examines historical takes on future cities, tracing how art, politics, and technology have shaped futuristic visions from Rio to Paris to New York. It's a sweeping look at how communities across the centuries have imagined progress and how those visions are or are not realized. The Jetsons, anyone? That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. This February marks a century since historian Carter G. Woodson launched what he called Negro History Week, an effort to document Black life and achievements at a time when American culture largely ignored them. In the 1970s, amid the Civil Rights Movement and a push to reshape what was taught in classrooms, that week expanded into Black History Month, officially recognized by President Ford in 1976. But this centennial lands at a fraught moment, with federal officials pushing to reshape how museums and public institutions tell America's story, and specifically, what of its ugly history should be omitted. Noel Trent, president and CEO of the Museum of African American History in Boston and Nantucket, joins us to talk about why this 100-year milestone matters now. She'll give us an overview of the museum's Black History Month programming. Noel Trent, welcome back to The Culture Show. It's great to see you again.
Great to be here, Jared. Thank you for having me.
Well, I love any chance to dive into a history which people may not understand.
Yeah.
So again, this started as a week-long effort that 100 years later has become what it is. What was the more expansive, other than what I just mentioned in the introduction, expansive thought behind this effort?
You know, I think a lot of people will be surprised because there's a big question around why February? It's the shortest month of the year. What's going on here? And so essentially, this was the week of Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Frederick Douglass's birthday. Lincoln's being February 12th and Douglass's being observed on February 14th. And those at the time were viewed as two critical historical figures. And so it began as a celebration, and communities were doing this before Dr. Woodson formalized the celebration. And so it became something to say, okay, out of the 52 weeks a year, we're going to elevate our engagement with Black History Month, with Black history, and then carry that through the rest of the year. So there's themes, there would be curriculums that would go out. I remember as a child, my grandmother telling me, you know, when she was in school, it was a week. She said, it's great that you have a month. But it was never meant to just be a month. So at the Museum of African American History, I like to say, we observe it 12 months out of the year, 365 days. And that is really true. And we take what Dr. Woodson said to heart, that this is a moment to elevate and celebrate, but it doesn't deny the work of making sure it's included in how we think about the country writ large.
Who was his intended audience when this effort started?
You know, I think his intended audience initially was the Black community, but it was also this more broader idea of highlighting that history really belongs to the people. He's part of this more populist thought or interpretation of history, that it's not a story of great men. It's a story of what regular individuals are doing. And he is Harvard trained. He's the second Black African American person to be awarded a doctorate after Du Bois, and the first to be a descendant of enslaved people to receive a doctorate at Harvard. And so he understands that history operates with multiple things happening at the same time. So the political is happening on top of the personal, on top of the economic, on top of the social. And his goal is just to get people to realize that, and that it's not about one individual. We want to highlight these notable individuals, but it's about more than that. And so if we do more than that, you can now see that the African American community has a rich experience in this larger American narrative.
It's interesting to flash forward and see how the subsequent dates for this movement and this month also coincide with the celebrations of our country. So 1976, President Ford offers an official recognition of Black History Month. 1986, now 40 years ago, is when it becomes an official federal designation. What was happening in that time, especially in 1976, when this was embraced by the federal government and President Ford?
Well, I think of the 70s as this really interesting point in the field of public history. Like, this is when they used to say that there was a glut of American history PhDs on the market. Like, there weren't enough jobs to put them in universities. So people are like, well, what are we going to do? And so folks begin to get into work around museums and historical societies more deliberately. And 76 is a pivotal moment because we see those organizations really dig in more into the national story. But also at the same time, between the 60s and 70s, we see the formation of a number of Black museums and cultural centers, right? And they're looking for trained individuals to help preserve and protect and interpret and disseminate these stories, both on a national level and on a local level. And so all of this is happening at the same time. So 2 years after the bicentennial, there's a group of African-American historians and museum professionals who come together and form an organization that would then become, which is now known as the Association of African-American Museums, that they said, okay, there's so many of us, and some of us are curators and spaces where we're the only one representing the culture, our history and heritage. We need to come together and organize and be able to support each other professionally. And so all of that is like churning at the same time. And so I think about that when we think about those moments as, why did this happen? It's the confluence of events.
What was it about the field and this confluence that ultimately drew you in for your career?
That's a really good question. You know, I came of age in the 80s and 90s. And so I'm coming of age at a time when Malifi Asante's book on Afrocentrism is very popular. So you see a lot of people embracing like some of the Marcus Garvey icons of the red, black, and green. You see a lot of more work about us talking about our African heritage, and there's just this idea of we have these important stories to tell. And so there was a lot, and Black History Month for me as a kid was, you're going to learn about Black inventors. And so we had to research at church our favorite Black invention, and only one of us could claim the ice cream scoop. That was a fight. Who got to talk about the ice cream scoop, right? Because then you try to use that to justify your parents giving you more ice cream, right? Because it's a Black invention. I'm trying to help you out here. But it was that learning that really fascinated me, and going to these sites and learning the history. I really, as a kid, was enchanted by historical places and spaces. And so I spent part of my childhood in Westchester, Pennsylvania, which was a spot on the Underground Railroad. And there's nothing that solidifies the notion of escape, like going into a home that was part of the Underground Railroad, going up the stairs and someone picking up floorboards and telling you that's where people who looked like you would have hid to escape slavery. So it's not this, ephemeral notion. It's concrete, it's real. And I just got fascinated with telling those stories. I also think I got frustrated because I was the kid in school who would ask questions that my teachers didn't know. Like, it didn't make sense to me as a kid why you would say Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin when he had only been in the South for a few months, and you have a whole bunch of enslaved people who've lived there their entire lives. You're telling me none of them gave him the idea? Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And my teachers would, they try to like pacify me a little bit, and you're just not going to tell me no, but so many times. So I think that ignited something in me, as well as, I think maybe in the 90s. Do you remember the rebroadcast of Roots, late 80s, early 90s?
Definitely, yeah.
Right. So my sisters didn't want to watch it, but I became very intrigued with it, mostly because LeVar Burton was on, and it was like, what's Reading Rainbow doing on TV? And he's not reading a book. What's going on here, right? And it was very emotional for me at first, but my mom would let me watch enough before I had to go to bed, and we would sit and we would talk about what I learned, and we would continue to have these discussions. And my dad, who has a degree in English, said, okay, you can read these books. And so all that sort of synthesized for me. So now it becomes, it's not just, it's the images, it's people, it's objects. And I was attracted to telling those stories because I found that more interesting, a way to engage with the history, and I wanted other people to be just as excited as I was.
If people are just tuning in, I'm speaking with Noelle Trent, President and CEO of the Museum of African American History in Boston and Nantucket. Based on what you just said, then, you must never take for granted, I would imagine, where you work today.
Oh, absolutely not.
Because we're not talking about just a museum that was constructed to tell the story. This museum, the building, the land, is the history.
Yeah, my favorite thing to do is to walk into the sanctuary of the African Meeting House when nobody's in there. Because you can kind of just, this is going to sound a little woo-woo, but you feel the energy of the building. That this is a building built in 1806, was never guaranteed to last as long as it did. But to know that the abolition movement, this movement that forced a reconciliation with how the country was treating over half of its population, conversations about this, the impetus for it, happened in that building, astounds me every single day. And to know that the floorboards are over 200 years old, and while we know important people like Frederick Douglass walked on those floorboards, there were hundreds of other individuals who came in and out and were dedicated to creating change just as much as he was, just not in the same way. And we're very grounded in community. It's something I don't take for granted. I think a historical building has stories to tell you if we just listen to it.
What is the programming, the range of programming you'll have in February? Again, every month is Black History Month, but in February in particular.
Oh, goodness. And there's a lot of programming. Let me break my phone out here because I'm going to mess up some of this. But we start off on February 1st with a teen takeover, and it's a partnership between us and the Mayor's Office of Youth and Engagement. It's really for teens, for them to talk about the history, why it's important. Typically, I think that we talk at teens and not allowing them to tell us what's important, what they value. And this is really an opportunity for them to step forward. And that's going to be very exciting. We continue to have our yoga.
Wellness is very important.
Wellness is very important. I have understood now that we have a very dedicated group of participants. So if you even think you're going to do yoga at the meeting house, please come, but get there early because space is limited. We have a couple of story times that are happening. We also have a partnership with Castle of Our Skin. So we are going to do an interactive workshop with them. And then there will be a walking tour of the historic areas regarding Black history of the North End. And we're doing that with the West End Museum and the Afro-American Academy. And then we have some flower arranging with a Black-owned florist because beauty and joy are part of this history too. And there's an opportunity for you to express yourself creatively. And quite frankly, with the way things are right now, I think we all need a little escapism in this moment. So you can do that with us. And then we're going to have a panel discussion on the 13th. And this is really our centennial celebration. It's about looking at the roots of Black history and the challenges of preserving it. Today, it'll be myself, Dr. Kira Singleton, from the executive director of Royal House and Slave Quarters, and Jennifer Turner from Communitas, and who's with an organization in Lexington, of the program. And then we're going to have a party afterwards because celebration is part of that experience too. And sometimes we think that this history is just tragic. We will also have a conversation between our curator, Angela Tate, and Dr. Nidra Lee, who is the archaeologist who did some of our digs in Nantucket, to talk about the archaeological artifacts that are on display. So an abundance and plethora of activities. We also have a premiere of Finding Phyllis.
I wanted to ask you about this. As far as I understand, this is a U.S. premiere of
U.S. premiere
documentary of Phyllis Wheatley, of course, the first published poet here in the United States.
With a special connection to Boston. And so we're incredibly honored to feature that premiere. And then we will close out the month with Suite for a Minor Meeting, which is a work by artist Jonathan Gonzalez of Magical Thinking Systems and Beliefs, who does, it's hard to explain it, but I really think people just have to come and experience it. It's dance, it's sculpture, it's text, and all of it is around the meeting house. And so you'll come in and be brought into something experiential. So if you want something different, there's the opportunity to do that. And then we do have a lunch in February that celebrates Black culinary history as well. So there is something.
That's a lot of planning.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But, you only turn 100 once. Right. So if we're going to do anything, let's really blow it out. And we want people to come and experience it, come to some of it, come to all of it. It's all there for you. And we're here to be here for our community.
I want to ask you to shift to some of the not great stuff for a moment. The last time you were here, we were talking about how in the early days of federal funding cuts from this administration, how it was affecting you, and it was affecting you a great deal. You had lost a considerable amount of money for some of the programs. It's how you do everything you just talked about. How would you describe where you are right now with what has happened?
So access to the money has been granted. So we are on track to complete the grant. But I think, like anyone else who received federal funding, the trust was broken. And so we don't have the same level of confidence that we once had with a federal grant. It used to be that you got that and you knew you were solid and they would work with you. But now that has changed so much. And so for us, we're going to keep doing the good work that we're doing. Does this mean we're out of the woods? Not quite. We're still here. We still need support in these moments. But also, we recognize that we were founded out of community members coming together and saying that this place is valuable, this place is worth preserving. So as much as we love, and I really love government funding, we cannot forget that we have always been supported by our community. We have always reflected the stories of our community, and we're going to continue to do that.
How has the support been with people stepping forward, and how do you factor that in? I think of us, for example, public media, and yes, there's been a groundswell. You can't bank on that forever necessarily. Right. So has that happened for you, and how do you use that going forward?
I think both your development department and our development department can safely say the ground has shifted for how nonprofits operate. And I think we're like every other nonprofit trying to figure out what this new reality is. And what are other ways that we can financially support ourselves and be financially sustainable. There have been a groundswell of support, but you're right. It's hard to gauge for how long that will last. I hope people, continue to support us, as I'm sure your team is as well. But I also think that nonprofits have to think differently. There was a time we could heavily rely on contributed income versus earned revenue, and that paradigm has shifted. So we're all trying to navigate and figure it out in a very complex, weird time, and you're really subject to the whims of the market in the same, kind of in the same way that a for-profit entity is, right? And so it just depends on what people's realities are as to how much they're able to support you, because their intentions might be good, but we acknowledge that there's realities on the ground. And so we're grateful for every dollar that comes in the door. We value it. We value every single contribution. Last year, we had a group of second graders who heard our story and said, that's not fair, and raised $1,500 for the museum. That was beautiful. And I practically cried, because I would not think a group of second graders, and shame on me, would understand and then be that galvanized to make change and go to people in their community and say, stand up. And then they went to Beacon Hill and walked to their representative and told them why they should support us. I probably need to hire them to be my lobbyist.
Well, these are the stories. Exactly. And these are the stories we need to give us hope in understanding all of our country in this moment. It is always such a pleasure to have you on the show and to speak with you. Great to see you.
Great to be here.
Noelle Trent is president and CEO of the Museum of African American History in Boston and Nantucket. Visit the museum's website to learn about all of their Black History Month programming, including live performances, family events, and the U.S. premiere of a documentary on poet Phyllis Wheatley. Again, thank you. Coming up, bass baritone Devon Tynes joins us ahead of his Boston concert with early music ensemble Ruckus. They're revisiting Revolutionary-era hymns and ballads and tracing their echoes across American history right to the present day. He's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Starting Monday, there's a new show on GBH 89.7, The Curiosity Desk. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Join me for a daily dose of questions, answers, and more questions. Stories big and mainly small, driving the zeitgeist. Like, what even is a zeitgeist?
It's a German word. Basically means spirit of the times.
See? Like that. It's all on The Curiosity Desk, weekdays at 1, starting Monday on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Brown University pre-college programs, where high school students experience college life, nurture their diverse interests, and make friends and memories that last a lifetime. Applications available online at precollege.brown.edu. And CrowdStreet, a platform providing individual investors direct access to private equity, private credit, and real estate. Learn more at crowdstreet.com.
Elevate your brand and support local journalism with a GBH sponsorship. Your custom sponsorship package can include audio, video, digital, and events. Learn more at gbh.org/sponsorship.
Support GBH and unlock the best of NPR and PBS, all bundled in one. With the GBH Super Bundle, you'll get NPR Plus and GBH Passport. So give a little, get a lot in return. Learn more at gbh.org/superbundle.
Edges of classical music, moving between opera, spirituals, and protest music to ask big questions about history and identity. He starred as Charles in the world premiere of Terence Blanchard's Fire Shut Up in My Bones, a work that later made history at the Metropolitan Opera as the first opera by a black composer ever performed there. And his own performance projects, engaging figures like Paul Robeson and Julius Eastman, blend music, theater, and politics into something that's closer to cultural reckoning than recital. Now he's joining forces with early music ensemble Ruckus for What Is Your Hand in This? It's a concert that traces American sound across the centuries, bringing new life to Revolutionary-era hymns and ballads, and following that thread through the Civil War, the Civil Rights era, and into the present day. Devon Tynes and Ruckus perform in Cambridge Saturday as part of Everyone 250. It's presented by Vivo Performing Arts at Sanders Theater. Devon Tynes, welcome back to the show. It's great to see you again.
Hello, great to see you.
Well, tell me about this big exploration that you're doing spanning the centuries.
Yes. What is your hand in this is trying to answer the question of how do we speak and talk about the 250th anniversary of this country, and talking with some of my closest colleagues in Ruckus. A lot of us got to know each other at Juilliard a while ago. Thinking together over the past 2 years about how do we address this, even musically. And we thought it would be important to show at a time like this that there is an entire history of music in America that questions America, that questions what's going on and what's happening, and allows people to have a forum in order to viscerally connect, even through song, through voice. So we wanted to continue that tradition and offer that forum for people today.
Well, before I go any further, I should ask you, you have this collaboration with Ruckus, which has been described as a rock group, in addition, of course, to being its early music. Tell us a little bit about them and how your partnership is just a perfect marriage of your artistry.
Definitely. Ruckus is a very unique ensemble. They are technically a period instrument ensemble, but they really bring in instruments from all kinds of periods. So we have harpsichord, we have Baroque violins, we also have, an early version of the bassoon, but we also have electric organ and electric bass. So it's a broad palette, and it kind of reflects the broad American palette of sound over the past 3 centuries. And part of the joy of my own music making and art making is looking at different traditions and pulling them together to show that people are composed of many different parts. So Ruckus's open spirit in bringing in so many flavors really fits with my own personal inquiry and exploring lots of avenues, but finding a commonality.
So when you go back to the Revolutionary War era as you have, and you look at the music of that period and the hymns, what spoke to you about the questions that were being raised even then?
There's so many different things we found in our research, and different people's attempt at defining what America could have been back then. We look at the music of Stephen Foster, who people know for writing the song Beautiful Dreamer, but he also wrote more complicated songs that we'll look at, showing the complications within one person. Something that's connected to oppression. But then we have other examples that are really not known, like Joshua McCarter Smith, who in 1845 wrote a song called To the White People of America, a very brave thing to do, in the middle of the 19th century. But really it was a plea to, call for some sort of reflection or questioning on what the actions were. And lastly, it also connects to shape note singing in the Quaker tradition. There's a piece we're doing called What Mean Ye? And so the Quakers and Joshua McCarter Simpson are singing about the same things from different decades.
What does it do for you to do this research, to conduct this research, to have this ever-expanding knowledge of the DNA of what you're performing and what this country is and culture is all around us?
I find it continually grounding. It gives me hope for the present and the future by understanding some of what has gotten us through the past.
How do you feel it when you're on stage?
It's really interesting to sing a program that has so many different historical periods represented, and the fact that we've gone through these things in terms of research and history, because it feels like you're time traveling. As a singer, I'm going from singing, early 18th century music to singing Sam Cooke to even Julius Eastman from the 1990s. And so it's like bringing all of these different bands of time together. So it feels quite special. It's like you're in your own little time machine on stage.
How do you see them connected? And do you think there is a DNA that threads through all of it, or are they independently finding their way through their moments?
I think what connects them is the curiosity of saying, okay, I'm not just going to write a song about love, or I'm not just going to write something that's a dance tune. I'm gonna write a song that invites other people to consider us as a group. It's a kind of unique channel within songwriting. It really is addressing the times that we all live in, but that has continued throughout time. So what connects them is just this genuine curiosity for how humanity is going.
And that was going to be my next question. By the way, if people are just tuning in, I'm speaking with Devon Tynes, the award-winning operatic bass baritone. He'll be performing with the ensemble Ruckus for What Is Your Hand in This? That's happening at Sanders Theatre in Cambridge. It's part of Everyone 250, presented by Vivo Performing Arts at Sanders Theatre. But looking at that and understanding what this time is and how everybody, knowing that everybody is collective, well, not everybody, but a lot of people are collectively taking a pause to think, to read, to understand how we got here, what is fueling this moment. Why is it important for you to conduct this project in this moment?
Our intent with this program was to offer people an intentional space for reflection and an intentional kind of framework to contextualize where things are right now, to know that we aren't just floating in outer space, but we are part of a continuum of history that has a lot of different options that people can choose from. We just want to demonstrate how different voices have found their way to hope. Even, in this time, we need forums where we can express things, where we can actually connect and try to collectively imagine where we could be going. And that's what music in this concert can do. You're well into a career now. Does it feel different to be performing now? Does it feel different to be singing and making art now than a few years ago? As I've progressed in my life and in my career, I think I've started to realize myself more deeply. Anybody gets to know themselves, feeling in their body and their personality. And I feel like I've grown a sort of rapport with talking with audiences. And I'm excited about this program because it's really direct address. It's not about some sort of artifice or disconnection from the musicians. I'm really looking at the group of people the entire time and trying to really, really connect. And I think being a bit older in my working life, I have a comfortability with addressing people head on. We've spoken many times over the years. I don't think I realized until this round of research that you had studied sociology at Harvard. I can only imagine how much that is playing into everything you've just talked about and how you build your artistic career. Definitely. Yes, at undergrad at Harvard, I studied music, but I also studied sociology. In fact, that was my primary degree, and it's always found its way into all of my music making ever since. Just this genuine curiosity for why culture creates and propagates itself, and also tools for assessing how people interact over time. It's really become the foundation of my own musical research. How do you see culture in this moment? You've talked about bringing people together, having a congress of understanding when everyone is in the room together. We have all manner of information that's coming at us. We have all manner of instruction that's coming at us. How do you see the arts having its own particular way into that discussion? I think the power of art and music is the ability to show people possibility, is the ability to look at something that you might not otherwise see, whether that be pointing out the beauty that's in the world that we often overlook, or whether that's actually allowing people to sit in the depth and the emotion of something that's happening. Things fly by us all the time within the Chiron, on different channels, but how often do we actually take a moment to let the actual feeling, the emotion, the humanity of what's happening sink in? I think it's important for people to digest their feelings in order to decide how to move forward. And music allows this. One of your last big projects was really living in the world of Paul Robeson, your artistic ancestor, as you've described him. How has he been a hero to you in terms of guiding you through this moment for his own groundbreaking moments? I feel like his influence, what he opened up in terms of utilizing his incredible voice and platform to speak to bringing people together, has been an instruction packet to myself. It's shown me that doing that kind of work is possible, and it's also demonstrated how it can be done. So it's only, part of my efforts to walk in his footsteps and say, people, respond to what I say, and so what I say should mean something and be for a reason, and that reason should be helping.
Are you mindful of how people may look at what you're doing in this moment and Ruckus is doing in this moment, what you're all doing, just as people look at his history?
I'm mindful of trying to be as honest as I can at every single moment and dealing with, how I am received in the world because of the truth of my reality and conviction.
And finally, going back to your biography, I was also struck in this latest round of research to read about everybody in your family who seems to be possessing this same drive for service and community. Could you tell me a little bit about how that was, the grounding that you had that fuels this?
Yes, my sibling and I talk about this often. We realize that now, my cousins and older family members all tend towards careers that happen to be of service. My grandfather was in the military for 30 years. My grandmother was a special education teacher. 3 of my closest first cousins are social workers. My sibling is now working for a Center for Criminal Justice Reform. And I'm also trying to, help people think about some things. So and also my aunt, does really incredible work with the National Education Association. So I guess by happenstance or by lineage, we're all trying to help in whatever way we can.
How many of you are blessed with the voice that you have?
We're all differently talented.
Well and democratically put. Well, Devon Tynes, thank you so much for being here. It's always great to see you. Good luck with the performance this weekend.
Thank you so much. Bye.
See you later. Devon Tynes is an award-winning operatic bass baritone. He joins early music ensemble Ruckus, or period music ensemble Ruckus, for What Is Your Hand in This, a genre-hopping program that reimagines Revolutionary-era hymns, ballads, and Baroque music, then follows that thread forward through American history. The concert is presented Saturday by Vivo Performing Arts at Sanders Theatre in Cambridge and is part of Everyone 250. To learn more, check out the Vivo Performing Arts website. And by the way, if you're wondering, they were formerly Celebrity Series until a big announcement they had recently about renaming. Coming up, how cities shape the future and how those ideas get built into real streets and skylines. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
In Europe, lots of voices on the political far right welcomed President Trump's return to the White House a year ago. But the president's rhetoric on Greenland and transatlantic trade has many Europeans turning on him.
Even amongst kind of more right-wing voters, Trump's behavior is not necessarily super popular.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, fueled by cutting-edge research and aided by the latest technology, professionals can choose from more than 90 in-person and online courses offered throughout the year. Executive.mit.edu.
Support for GBH comes from you and the law firm of McLean Middleton.
We represent middle market businesses, the kind of businesses that you see every day out in your community.
John Colucci, Managing Director.
We really appreciate the opportunity to sponsor GBH. There's only a few places where you can really make an impact in a very tangible way and in a way that helps you feel good about making our community a better place, and we're happy that GBH is letting us be a part of that.
To learn more, visit gbh.org/sponsorship.
Your trusted local news, covering the stories that matter to you. Stay informed and stay connected on the GBH News YouTube channel. Subscribe and watch on your phone, tablet, or smart TV. GBH News, what matters to you.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. Cities are often described as mirrors of who we are, but they are also laboratories for who and what we might become. In his new book, The Invention of the Future, A History of Cities in the Modern World, Bruno Carvalho traces how modern cities from Rio to Paris to New York have been shaped by art, politics, technology, and competing visions of progress. It's a cultural history of the city as promise. Think flying cars and affordability, of monorails and sprawling parks. Bruno Carvalho appears at Harvard Bookstore tonight for an event at 7. He's a professor of Romance languages and literatures and African American studies at Harvard. He's also co-director of the Harvard Mellon Urban Initiative. Welcome to the Culture Show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much, Jared. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, your book is so interesting because it takes us back to history, looking at the future and these conceptions of cities that people have. How did this occur to you to look at the dreams that people have had?
Yeah, so my previous book ends in the 1940s. So it's a book about a neighborhood in Rio. It's a cultural history. It's a neighborhood that had a neighborhood known as Little Africa. It's a Jewish neighborhood, and a major freeway was built through it and sort of destroyed it. And it dawned on me as I finished this project that had started with the city in the early 1800s that really the history of urbanization and of planning is a history of competing visions over what the future ought to be like. So as I sort of sat with this book that had ended, I thought, I should try to figure out where this story kind of begins. And that took me to the middle of the 18th century, the 1700s, really when people begin to assume that the future will be radically different from past and present, right? So as people walked around in medieval Paris or the Amazon forest, not that long ago, just a few hundred years ago, it's not as if they kind of assumed that their surroundings would be radically changed, right? Change was predetermined. It came about through divine forces. The 18th century, people start to get the idea that the future is something that we can pursue, that we can build, and cities became a major expression of that, right? So story starts in the mid-20th century, and then I go back to the 18th century to make sense of it.
And I'll go back there in a moment, but the word radical there is key. You also mentioned the Jetsons in your opening. I think a lot of us know the Jetsons and its vision of the future as we saw in that open, things that still have not completely materialized today. So we are still in a moment of looking at our future as though it will be radically different. What is it about humanity and civilization that we default to the radical as we think about the future?
Yeah, so as I worked on this project and I researched several cities over a decade, I'm a pretty gregarious person, and I think every urbanist should like to talk to strangers, and I did that. And I made a habit of asking people what they thought the future was going to be like and what they thought the future was going to be like when they were kids. And in 3 or 4 languages, in several countries, several age groups, it was extraordinary how often people mentioned the Jetsons. So there's something about that show that really produced this sort of very powerful image. Now, the Jetsons has something that a lot of imaginations about the future have as far back as we can tell, which is the fact that they present a mirror of the present, right? So as people try to imagine their aspirations and things that they might think of as radical, in some senses, they're actually just projecting what's happening in the present. So we can see the Jetsons as a story about suburbia. Social life moves to the household. You're driving around everywhere, except that, of course, you are, in this case, flying. The idea of so one of the arcs, one of the themes in the book is that when there's a major inflection point in technology, people imagine that the radical curve is going to stay that way, whereas in effect, it often sort of plateaus. That's what happens with flight. So as soon as you have balloons, people start to imagine that you're going to have these sort of flying buses, all kinds of wacky contraptions and so on. And then with a car, it's the same, right? We used to be in horses, now we drive around. Of course, it's just a matter of time, where they were flying already, 100 years ago, even longer. So it seems like just a matter of time before everybody's flying around in their own private vehicles. So there's a bit of the Jetsons in the book. There's the opening of the Jetsons, where the most radical part about what was happening in the United States is a sort of blind spot in the introduction, which is not flying, which has as its analog in the real world the car, but rather parking, right? Cars are great for moving you around. They're a problem when you have to store them. And in the intro to the Jetsons, George simply hits a button and his car becomes luggage. So there's a bit of magical thinking that kind of overlooks the actual radical change happening then, which was the transformation of mobility towards car-centric
Well, I want to go back to, as you said, where you start, and you spent a lot of time talking about Lisbon and Portugal, which had to rebuild after a major, major earthquake, just devastated the region. Why did that become such a pivotal point and is so significant, and as you write about, in understanding our historic look at the future?
Yeah, so a lot of these ideas about the future as something to be built, right, as something that's not given by the divine, were coalescing around the 18th century. They were, of course, fundamental to the French Revolution, to the U.S. Revolution, and in a very unlikely way, as it often happens in history, because of a natural disaster, an accident of history, the Lisbon earthquake, to this day, perhaps the most devastating natural disaster in modern European history. There's an opportunity to rebuild the city, and for reasons that I do get into in greater detail in the book, there's a minister who was very well versed in the latest ideas, Vienna and London and so on, that decides to rebuild Lisbon as a secular scientific city, right, with Commerce Square as its center and not a cathedral and not a royal palace as had been the norm. So really a city for the modern world, and this is of course extremely unlikely. Lisbon was an extraordinarily religious city, so the afterlives of this are fascinating too, but I'll leave that for readers to discover.
You also talk about, to move from religion to authoritarianism, I'm going to do it, but that has had a major impact in our visions of the future for cities as well.
Yes, so, this is important to say in 2026. I've been trying to say this for some time now, because something that becomes very clear in this book is that progressives don't have a monopoly on the imagination, right? We often face authoritarian regimes by arguing that we should imagine our ways out of there. But of course, Nazis and fascists had very fertile minds, and they had their own visions of the future. So that's one throughway throughout the book. Competing visions of the future often place egalitarian visions against visions that want to entrench hierarchies, and that kind of takes its own shape depending on the moment and depending on the place. But there is one historical lesson there, which is not to sort of underestimate visions of the future that we might not partake in.
I'm speaking with Bruno Carvalho, professor at Harvard University, where he's also co-director of the Harvard Mellon Urban Initiative. His latest book is The Invention of the Future, A History of Cities in the Modern World. And by the way, you can catch him tonight at Harvard Bookstore at 7 for a talk. Going back to the technology that you were just talking about, why isn't there a momentum once we have this major technological shift, like flight or transportation, or in this moment, I think everybody who's listening, I'm thinking the world has changed and will probably change dramatically because of AI.
Yeah, I think it depends on the technology. Technologies of communication and mobility are ones that are crucial to the book. In some senses, we, until very recently, in my opinion, we're still living through the ripple effects of the great technological takeoffs of the late 19th century. And the degree to which communications, building, and mobility changed then surpasses anything that anyone has experienced since, right? Because you went from, weeks to minutes, or from hours to minutes, depending on whether you're talking about the telegraph or trains and so on. And we'll see if AI is in the same order. One other lesson in the book and in history, I think, is that we tend to underestimate the range of potential outcomes. And the way through which to think that is if I send you back in time in a time machine to describe to people what will be ahead, 5 years, 10 years, and so on, you'll be the first person to laugh out of a room of very serious people, right? So if I send you to 2008 to describe what happens with U.S. politics in the next 15 years, no one will take you seriously. And I wonder what the version of that is for AI. And, it's history can barely predict the past, so I won't make any predictions about the future. But it's hard to know if it's another one of those that we tend to think will be a bigger deal than it is, or whether this is just beginning and we'll look back on our own period as something very different from what's ahead.
You spent a lot of time in the book. Of course, we spend a lot of time in our lives focused on transportation. And this is how cities are built, especially most recently, over the last century, cars. Is transportation central? I mean, you think of the Jetsons, you think flying cars. That's one of the first things you think of. And of course, we know that the buildings are built around paved roads or cobblestone roads, and just our mobility. How dependent are we on very specific modes of transportation, and how has that guided these dreams of the future?
Yeah, that's a great and big question, which I spend a lot of time with in the book. I mean, we might think of the 19th century as the story of the train and its impact on urbanization and planning, right? And the change revolutionizes mobility between cities. That changes that changes migration patterns. It changes how goods circulate. It doesn't change too much how people circulate within the city, right? That's a largely 20th century story with streetcars and then the car itself. And the car is, to me, the big story of the 20th century and how it changed our imagination of cities. There's a lot of other histories that spend a lot of time with radical thoughts and radical ideas, but in a lot of ways, they mattered a lot less than the extent to which the car was simply irresistible if you were running a national economy. Whether you were a capitalist, a communist, a Nazi, a fascist, whatever ism you might have subscribed to, cars simply led to, it was a multiplier of economic growth because of its supply chains and so on and so forth. So it wasn't about cities, but it completely changed, especially in this country, how we organize them. And in some senses, the story of the 21st century, as we face from housing shortages to climate change, is going to be the story of sort of undoing some of these legacies and trying to rethink mobility in ways that are more efficient, right? The car is wonderful if very few people have it. The more people have it, the worse it is for everyone, simply because their carrying capacity is very limited. And that's, of course, a big story of planning now, and trying to wrestle with these questions.
I was also really interested to read about how you consider countries and communities that have had visions imposed on them, especially for colonial rule, and what happens when that colonial rule ends and people are left to their own devices and, more importantly, visions and hopes.
Yeah, that's another big story of the 20th century. So, I'll even backtrack a bit. I mean, one of the promises of cities is the idea that you can overcome an assigned role, right? Be it nationality, class, gender, race, and so on. That gains a national political dimension, in various post-colonial movements in the 20th century, and so on. Another recurring aspect of cities is how the history of the unintended is a constant in the history of planning, right? So there were a lot of spaces that were planned for colonizers and to exclude those at the bottom of social hierarchies that, in effect, became co-opted by them and reinvented for new uses. I'll leave it at that. There are many examples we could get into, but that's sort of one pattern.
We know Frederick Law Olmsted well here in the United States, especially well here in Boston, as having designed the Emerald Necklace. You cite him as a major force in carrying cities forward.
Yes, he's one of the three protagonists of a central chapter in the book that focuses on Haussmann, the mayor behind the Parisian reforms, Cerdà in Barcelona, and Olmsted here in the United States. And how could we underestimate his legacy from Central Park to right here in Boston? I think one thing that Olmsted understood, along with these peers, was the scale at which you had to plan the city and how it had to be metropolitan and it had to sort of incorporate the environment. Would we love to see part of his vision still fulfilled here for the Emerald Necklace? The car, to some extent, got in the way of that, but just, yes, a completely fascinating character.
You're somebody who walks a lot of places. How is this, you're being in different cities, where you grew up, now being here in the Boston and Cambridge surrounds at Harvard, how has that informed all that came into your book and how you've been thinking about the life around you and how it's always been constructed?
Yeah, I even sometimes think of this book as, in a way, trying to lead readers through a walk along history. Sometimes a bumpy ride. Yeah. Sometimes we sit on a bench and try to take stock of where we've been. But yes, I love walking. I mean, it's as a species, we're built for walking. One argument I make is that walkability should be at the heart of how we think of the future of cities. In a way, it's the lowest of hanging fruits. If we simply designed cities to meet the demand for walkability, we would solve problems. We would help to solve problems from housing shortages to carbon emissions. But no, I love to walk.
Is it folly for me? It is folly for me, if I'm asking you the question, to ask what do you think the future development of cities is, because we've just spent a whole conversation talking about how it didn't meet expectations, what people envision. But as you've looked back and you've done all of these case studies and you've seen how these cities were built, what do you think about this moment and where we're headed?
Well, I'll start with, again, the line that we can barely predict the past, and it's a bit of folly to try to predict the future. One important lesson is that I think we, again, underestimate the range of outcomes and overestimate inevitability. I think that returning to history and how often the near impossible or the implausible happens can be a way to loosen up our sense of any given prospect as a given or as inexorable, right?
What would you give as examples as the impossible?
One that has been on my mind. Well, one is, so nobody saw the car coming, right? Planners and even the more fantastic visionaries thought that they just simply could not envision that the car as an individual vehicle would be how we get around. It seemed completely insane for most science fiction authors. The other are gender relations. So most science fiction works did not tend to imagine that women would have the same rights as men. That was simply a step too far for many of them.
Well, the book is fascinating. Of course, your conversation will be continued tonight at Harvard Bookstore. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jared. It was a pleasure.
Bruno Carvalho is a professor at Harvard University, where he's also co-director of the Harvard Mellon Urban Initiative. His latest book is The Invention of the Future, A History of Cities in the Modern World. You can catch him tonight at Harvard Bookstore at 7. Again, thank you. And thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. Tune in tomorrow or join us live at the Boston Public Library for our Wednesday watch party. This month, we're entering the time warp, rewatching and reliving the 1993 classic Groundhog Day, where romance, comedy, and philosophy tangle in a time-looped world. We're asking you if it stands the test of time, and if so, why? Call in or join us in person at the library tomorrow. The Culture Show crew is Max Chow-Gillette, Kate Dellis, and Chelsea Murs. Our intern is Anna Hugh. Welcome to The Culture Show, Anna. Today is her first day. Today's engineer is Bill Piazzatelli. Brad Lewis produced today's YouTube live stream. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
GBH's All Things Considered is coming up this afternoon at 4, with Marketplace at 6:30. But first, get a global view of the news with The World. Up next, here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you
and the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer, the Unclaimed Property Division.